Hey, Dr. Zayas. Dr. Zayas, do you know about the Sunburn Gaming Engine? No, 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 no. You don't have to go into the Forbidden Zone for the Sunburn Gaming Engine. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Sunburn Gaming Engine and the Dream Build Play competition that Microsoft just opened up. Now, the Dream Build Play competition that Microsoft opened up is an annual competition that Microsoft does for XNA developers. This year you can target the Xbox or Windows Phone 7. If you're just hearing this from me, that means you only have 3 months, hopefully you're listening to this fairly recently from the time it was recorded, to get your game done and submitted. That's not a whole lot of time. This is where something like the Sunburn Gaming Engine can come in really handy. You can get your game up and looking nice, similar to Orbitron Revolution, which entered last year, Everglide 2, and Progenitor. All 3 games were finalists in Dream Build Play last year, and all 3 used the Sunburn Gaming Engine. The Sunburn Gaming Engine can save you a lot of time, and you may think that, oh, I don't have time to learn an engine, let me just go ahead and hack it on my own and go on my own and try to get my game. But it's not that hard to get going. There are tons of example content and tutorials on the Sunburn site for you to learn all the little intricacies in and out. There's a very excellent set of forums to ask any questions. And with the Sunburn Gaming Engine, you get to save time beyond just the looks of your game. It has a physics engine. It has controller inputs. It has game objects that you can code to. There's a lot in the engine just besides looking pretty. And it will help your game look pretty. So it will also help you in debug because you get a runtime debug system that you can actually manipulate your world while it's running. That is huge in game development. The quicker you can make changes and see those changes, the quicker you can get on with your game. So if you're thinking about entering Dream Build Play, or you're just thinking about making a game with XNA, check out the Sunburn Gaming Engine over at synapsegaming.com. All right, welcome to the show. As you guys have already heard, Dr. Zayas is with us tonight, filling in as he always does when Dylan is out. Cicely's with us.
Hello.
And our guest this evening is Mr. Dave Voyles. Hello, Dave.
Well, hello there.
All right. First, I want to say, I just want to fawn some praise over you guys. I think I've said this on the show before, but when we were putting GameMarx together, when we were having the idea of what we wanted to do, we surveyed the land of kind of what was out there, covering Xbox Live Indie games, covering XNA, and Armless Octopus was what I put down as, these are the graybeards, these are really kind of the stewards of the community, these are the guys that are really, we want to steal some things from them and emulate some of the things they do. And you're wonderful on that team, Mike, the crew there. You guys are excellent. So,
oh, thanks.
I wanted to get that praise out of there. And I want to ask you on the show what your background is. I saw you make some tweet or something about like getting an MBA, but as far as games, are you coming out of this as I was a programmer, or how did you get into games? What's your background here?
Ooh, well, I guess like most of us, I've always played games or had like a real passion for it. So I started like 3 or 4 years old. Yeah, I got a Nintendo when I was 3, so that was 1989. And I'm telling you, at like 4 years old, I knew I wanted to do something with the gaming industry.
Thank you for making me feel old.
Right. But I mean, like I played like religiously growing up, and I basically got my hands on anything I could at that point. And it always stuck with me. But as I got older, more and more of my friends got out of gaming. And I understand why. You know, you guys must have seen it too, in that you get tied up in life and everything else. But that hobby always stuck with me. So I went to college and got a degree in communications first, which is basically the art of BS. And it was helpful in some ways, but not too helpful. And immediately after, I wanted to go back to school to learn the business side of things, or that's at least what I figured at the time. This was in 2009. I finished my undergrad. I thought, an MBA would be a good way to get another job. And I'm in the New York area, so I work in Manhattan. So I figured, oh yeah, MBA, everyone can use them down here. So what I tried doing actually was I knew I wanted something with computers and computing and something with business. So I tried doing 2 masters at once, a master's in computer science and an MBA. I thought I'd be a student for like 3 or 4 years. And that was very difficult because I quickly found out I was terrible at math. So I decided to drop the computer science and just work on business. A year into that, I realized I'm learning absolutely nothing here. I'm just going to learn what I want to on YouTube and on the internet. And thank God for the internet, and that's saved me a lot of money since then. So, exactly 2 years ago, that's when I started to get my foot in the door with the gaming industry. And what had happened was, I read Joystick pretty frequently, and what happened? I read something about the Game Developers Conference was coming up. This was in 2010, and last minute, I just went on a whim. I said, okay, I've been out of school for a couple of years. I want to do something in the industry. I have no idea how to get in. So I hopped on a plane, flew to GDC. I booked all this maybe 2 weeks before GDC and got an Expo Pass, which is the most standard pass you can get for like $250, $300 or something. And basically gives you access to the show floor. But it's a great way to make connections, to see how things work. And it's very intimidating for anyone who's new because there's so much going on and everyone looks like they just know what they're doing. So I'd sit down for these long discussions and chats and just focus on things where I had no idea about. I remember watching Crytek talk about storing different data in different channels. Like, oh, we store this in the alpha channel. I remember thinking a year later, I want to come back and know what he's talking about. So
yeah, I was gonna say at this point, what is your experience with software in general? Like, do you have like just C from college and that's it, or do you have like?
No, not at all. So quickly, right after I got back from there, anyone who's gone to GDC kind of gets this like pent up energy where you just want to make things with games. So I hopped on Facebook, went to the Joystick page and said, hey, I want to start a podcast. Who wants to come with me? Sure enough, in the next few hours, we had like 100 people respond. I said, okay, first 4 people responded. Let's do it. And then from there, we started Armless Octopus. We had no direction at the time, and we just wanted to talk about games. And then quickly, Mike Wall, who's now our editor-in-chief, he said, I love Xbox Live indie games. Let's go check this out. He's like, I want to start a site doing that. So he did it on his own for maybe a month before we said, yeah, let's do a podcast about that instead. I'd never even heard of Xbox Live indie games a little over 2 years ago. And quickly, I fell in love with it once I saw that people could make their own games and put them on a console. So I started to write, and I wanted to take the approach that I saw you guys were taking, and that's a developer background. A lot of your work, especially now on the podcast, is for developers and to help them out. So we began to kind of cover developer-related stories and just get involved in the community as much as we could. So I came from writing background because I knew that that'd be the best way to network and learn from other people. And then from there, I just wanted to start making games. So the following GDC, I learned about the Unreal Engine. Picked up 2 fat books from Sam's Press. It's like $90 a piece for these like 600-page books, and I just sat down and read the hell out of them over and over. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start learning the ins and outs of this. So that's it. I come from a background of nothing, and just kind of through YouTube and tutorials, I started to learn a little art.
Through sheer will alone, like,
yeah,
I will be a game developer. And
so I want to learn a little bit about everything without being good at anything.
Now, I've seen video that you've put up of your current project that you're doing on the Unreal Engine, where you're recreating Mega Man 2.
Right.
In Unreal, but you actually have it in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty impressed because I thought, I didn't from any of your stuff. I'd assumed, I didn't know until I just asked, but that you didn't really have a developer's background.
Nothing at all.
I was like, wow, this guy's going from writer to the Unreal Engine. Talk about from going 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat. And I'm like, okay, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out where this goes. And then I saw this up, and I like, wow, okay. And I was like, I've looked at the Unreal Engine, so it's not because the Unreal Engine is easy.
Right. It's pretty difficult to get into.
I mean, we've had many debates back and forth and go back and forth of whether we use Unreal or whether we use Unity. Mm-hmm. And we kind of settle on Unity because we don't, not that we like it as a developer.
Right.
Because it's less code is exposed to you in Unity than Unreal.
Yeah, and that's true.
And that's my warm blanket, you know, because like I've been since 1985, before you had your console or were around.
Yeah.
Been coding, and that's
Right.
my warm safety blanket. And that's where I like to be. But it's getting to the point where we're very pressed for time, and we need to say like, our job is not to write an engine. Our job is to make a game, and we need to
Right.
to feel, you know, what we could do. So we kind of left off and went into Unity and looked them out. They're both very affordable for indies right now. I mean, they're both very principal. Even without Unity going free, they were both kind of like a wash either way. That they're approachable. So on the Unreal, let's talk about the Unreal Engine a little bit. And you have played with Unity, so you can kind of contrast the two.
Yeah, I've used that CryEngine, Unreal, and now dabbling in XNA.
Now, the Unreal Engine, I believe you can either code a lot with Unreal Script or C++. Those are the options.
Right. So, well, there's two different things, really. There is UDK, which is the Unreal Development Kit. So that's come out in the last 3 years, I believe. Previously, there was just the Unreal Engine. And the Unreal Engine was basically the ability to modify a bit of the source code that Epic would just hand out. Say, hey, you want to make some mods or make your own little thing? Here you go. But I don't think you can make your own game from there. So you can go back and forth between the two, but the great thing about the Unreal Dev Kit is that you have access to a lot of the programming, and that's in their form of Unreal Script, which is a combination of C++ and JavaScript. So if you know either or, you're not going to have a very difficult time transitioning over. And then at the same time, if you want to use the C++ code, you need to have be an Unreal licensee. So you basically have to approach Epic and say, you know, I want to become a licensee, and there's different payment options, but I believe, and don't quote me on this, that for UDK, you don't have to pay anything up front. But for the most part, you have just about anything you'd want to do in there without having access to C++, the source. But once you hit the $55,000 threshold, you have to begin to pay royalties, something like 10%, which is, if I make $55K making any game, I've got no problem paying, 10% to the developer.
Now, is there
but if you use
a fee on if you go like an iOS or an Android client with Unreal?
No, that's included.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, you can play it right there in the editor. I mean, there's literally a button that says like, "Show me what it would look like if I'm playing on Android." Show me what it look like playing on iOS. So yeah, they do a lot of the groundwork for you. That's why I really appreciate it. It's flexible. You can use. They're trying to make a browser-based edition now, but also iOS, Android, 360, PS3, and PC. And you have to do very, very few changes yourself.
So now, coming from Unity with the full-on scripting and asset manager and object manager and all that, is that all built into? Because I don't think I think my experience then, from what you described, I'm kind of just the Unreal Engine. Like, here's an engine. Now go wrap a game around this and start.
Oh, no.
And I may need to take more of a look at Unreal now and see where it's come, if it's got more tooling and.
Oh yeah, I mean they have tools for just about everything in there. So they have a nice little browser for all of your assets in there. So you can. It's similar to Unity's. You have obviously a browser for your graphics, your collision, your all of your art assets in there. But you can also access everything that came with the kit too. So everything that Epic provides. You can tweak it all if you want, all their items, but you can't export them. Say I want to take their character, bring it to max and change it. I can't do that. Okay. But at the same time, they have a collision editor in there. They have another one for physics, another one for rigging characters, animations. So there's literally everything you could want in this package. But the catch is, if you're not familiar with a 3D package already, like Maya or Max, you're going to have a very difficult time transitioning over. So I found that at the hard way in that I thought I would just jump in Unreal, but I quickly realized that I would need to learn one of those 3D packages in addition to that.
All right. Hopefully we don't get too much buzz off you. Got a little buzz there, but
yeah, my mic does that from time to time for some odd reason.
Okay. Okay, so that kind of leads up to there. I was going to ask you for your levels then that you're doing out in Mega Man. What are you using to construct the levels? Are you actually going into a Maya or 3D editor and making them and then importing them, or are you able to make them in the engine? In the
well, generally for Mega Man, what I did was I found a website that has all the maps from NES games, and I literally took a photoshopped image of the Mega Man 2 Bubble Man's map, threw it into Photoshop, and I basically counted pixel by pixel how large each platform was. And then from there, I would just do the math and do ratios to decide how far this would be, how far that would be. Then, without getting too complicated, I would use SketchUp, which is a free Google program.
Mm-hmm.
That is outstanding for any 3D work. Outstanding. You can learn it in a day.
Yeah.
It's easy to start with.
Oh my goodness, it is so.
Some stuff it just makes me want to stab things.
Yeah,
but
she's an architect, so she's.
Oh yeah, if you're in architecture and you're getting into complicated things, it's
I designed my desk with it, so I'm quite happy with it. So wait, you were able to. So what about texturing? Because SketchUp, I don't think has any kind of texturing support.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with texturing in SketchUp. But what I would do is for textures, I would make them all in Photoshop. So I make all my models in 3ds Max, and now I'm using Maya. I generally prefer a little more. So I'd make all my models there, and then I would import them into there's a new pipeline, a content pipeline, I should say, that they've created for Unreal. So this way you can literally take all of your assets from Maya or Max, and it takes your animations, your textures, your models, your collision, brings it all right into to UDK in about 1 or 2 buttons. So there's 2 ways you can go about that. You can either do all of the modeling inside of Maya or Max, and then export it all to UDK, and you can lay out your level that way. So instead, what I chose to do was they have like grid-based editor, I guess you would say, in UDK. So I just lay out my levels that way. I would block it out using BSP, so like large square brushes. I would just get an idea for size, and then I would basically drag and drop my models from Max straight into there. So I would do it. I basically did it twice, to tell you the truth. I did all the simple geometry in UDK. So say I'm going to have a platform. I wouldn't apply any materials to it. I would make a rectangle. That was it. And that would represent my block. And I knew how big that had to be. And from there, I'd go into Max, make that block, and drop it right in.
Okay. The lighting, or I don't know if you've gotten into this.
Yep, I've done lighting.
All right. Yeah. So how's the lighting in the engine? How do you find?
Actually,
you're placing all that with Unreal, right? Or are you doing that in your modeling?
No, I do all the lighting in Unreal as well. So the lighting it's a lot to learn, but once you learn the basics behind it, it's very easy to work with. So it's everything from dynamic lights to, which are always reflecting shadows in a different manner on each character or object as it moves along. More dynamic lights you have, obviously, the more overhead to the game. Whereas if you have static lights, say I have a lamp, right? Say I have a lamp hanging over my character's head, a street lamp. What you can do is every time you build your level, you basically have that light and that shadow baked into the map. And it might take a few minutes to build that map each time, but from then on, once that light's built, it's there. So this way you have very little overhead in the engine when you're actually playing the game. So lighting is pretty easy to do on Unreal. It bakes the light straight into the model and saves a map. And once that map is done, you don't really have to build the light again after that point. But they make it very easy to make like movable lights and animate them. Say you can do like a concert, and they have like lights that are spinning around in people's eyes and stuff. You can do that in 2 or 3 minutes once you get the hang of it.
Now the trade-off for anybody listening, when you bake the light and you do a static light in there, and you have the street lamp. If the character is to walk under the street lamp and it's a static light, then he won't throw a shadow.
Correct.
You'll need a dynamic light to do that, but this is a game that you're playing, and it's a dangerous game because there's a lot of trig behind lighting and calculations, and so, I mean, it's really easy to go, like, bloom it all to hell and light everything, and it looks wonderful, and then, like, you try to run on anything other than, like, a quad-core processor with 12 gigs of RAM, and... Yeah,
you have to tweak it to your audience,
Yeah.
But they also... They have like a post-processing editor too. So what I recently saw, I played through The Darkness. Have you guys played that?
I've heard of it.
I haven't played through it. I know what it is.
Okay, so they use this thing called Sobel edge detection, and it sounds more complicated than it is. Basically, it looks like comic book or cartoon outlining, where they'll add like thick black lines on the edge of every material. So if you're a person, imagine where your arms or the outline of your arms and your hands, they're now thick black lines to separate everything. So you can easily add things like that or different materials to characters in either the code or in the engine itself. So they make a lot of it very straightforward, but the hard part is understanding how to do this the first time.
Do they have like a self shading?
No, they have like they're slowly getting better with their tutorials on what's called the UDN, the Unreal Dev Network, and I think that they're finally doing that because of the competition they're facing from Unity. Because so many of these things that I had to do, there were no tutorials for. And now, as soon as Unity really started to push forward, all of a sudden they have tutorials for platforming and for, side-scrolling cameras and third-person cameras.
Yeah, I think the rapid pace at which the indie gaming has risen, mostly because of mobile platforming, but also because of sites like Steam, a renaissance on the PC. It's kind of reinvigorated of late. I think it's kind of caught off guard, like you were saying, like some of this stuff is not documented, because it seems like most game stuff, 5 years ago even, was just traded between developers. Like it was like stuff you learn on the job, and it's not really written anywhere.
Right.
The books, are never technology specific. They're very general.
Right. Well, what do they have? They're like internal wikis and things like that.
Yeah. And the books that I had prior to XNA and the indie rise scene, coming on there, were like making games in C++, and that was just from scratch.
Right.
Or they were these, it's a really good book series. This game programming gem series.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just one-off papers written by different developers. And back in the mid-90s, I followed a couple, we would call them blogs today, but we didn't have that word in the mid-90s. Developer journals, and they would say like, hey, one guy just wrote a lot about AI, and I was really fascinated by it, and he was like, hey, I'm going to be publishing this book. I've written some stuff about AI that'll be in this book. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And, you pick the book up and you read a little bit about A-Star, but it's so generic, it's not applied to anything. And now, you can pick up, like you did, you picked up books on Unreal, you can pick up books on Unity, you can get books on, Coco Game, and it's really kind of awesome, and how crazy easy it's becoming.
Oh yeah. That's why it's like shooting down college education before. I got like halfway through my MBA, and I own a fortune for it, and I realized I just don't see the point in me going back, because through books, YouTube, and online things like I'm gonna pimp this site real quick. I use Digital Tutors, outstanding for learning just about anything with game development. It was like $50 for the first month. I tried it out, and then maybe $300 for a year. I have never seen anything better in my life. And I only say this because I want everyone to learn as much as I can, so I can learn from them too. But it's simple, but they have hundreds and hundreds of courses on Maya, Max, XNA, but it's all older XNA stuff. Unity, an entire game built out of Unity. It's like a third-person or first-person zombie shooter. Start from beginning to scratch with source code, all the assets, everything. Really active forums. So, things like that. The internet really do help people make games. Or, like we were saying before, now we have developers who are kind of blogging their progress as they're going along. That's a reason I do the same. I guess a lot of developers do it twofold. One, to help others along the way. They want to... Someone else... Basically, if you have a problem with making a game, someone else has had that same problem already. And in addition, it shows other people that you know what you're doing. So if someone's looking to hire you for something, you could easily say like, yes, I know what I'm doing. Here's an example of me illustrating some of the work. But
Yep.
So what do you guys think? You agree? It's easier today than ever, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, so developer all my life, never really got into game development. And part of that was it seemed like a mystical land, You know, like game developers were out in Narnia or somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I don't have access to this. And that was because, you know, like games came on a cartridge. And then
You're like, how does it there? I don't get it.
As PCs got up, and, you know, I think I made some little stuff in BASIC, but 94, 95 when I went in the Air Force, really until I got out, and in 98, 99, I didn't do a whole lot of gaming or playing games or keeping up with games. I did some coding in military systems and doing weather systems and things like that, but I was kind of removed from that. And part of that too was like my pastime was chase and tail. I mean, I was in the Air Force. I mean, that's
as a military guy, I understand.
You know, so I lived, and also because I was a nerd all through high school. All through high school, I didn't go out. I just came home and worked on the computer. Something. It was either programming or it was MIDI. And not that I had MIDI instruments. I was actually hard coding notes.
Oh my goodness, I feel for you.
Oh yeah, my biggest one, and I think the data's gone now. I could never find it again. But I actually completed like the full orchestral arrangement of Bohemian Rhapsody, and it pissed me off because there was a file size limitation on MIDI, and I broke it.
8 kilobytes.
So I had to like have 2 MIDI files for it and hook my cassette recorder up to the PC and like pause it, switch MIDIs, and then play the second half of it. So sometimes I would do like, I was also fascinated with the demo scene. The demo
Back
scene.
in the 90s, you're saying?
Well, I'm sorry?
Back in the 90s, you're saying? Like the shareware demo scene?
The demo scene, as I refer to it, means guys that were writing code that was running amazing stuff really fast on hardware you didn't believe was possible. So they would usually have like some kind of techno beat and wild 3D objects spinning at you and going at you and all that. There was demo competitions and things like that. Later, demos started to mean like shareware and demos like that. But this
right.
These guys just lived in assembler. And they just really pushed the edge. And I couldn't do that stuff, but I would, in some C, mostly BASIC, use my MIDI and make a video and things like that. I totally got off. I was going somewhere with all this. Always had a point. Oh,
how easy it is to learn today and make games?
Yeah, it was black box. It wasn't approachable. There was also the horrible thing that school is great about crushing your creativity.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, no, you can't be a game developer. What are you, crazy? You need a real job. Like, that's not what you do. You know, and so, I just kind of stayed away with it. And I think I was happy programming. I'm always happy writing code. So that's kind of easy of like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm just kind of, writing code, different things. Databases are just as interesting as game dev, so I didn't pursue it. When XNA came along, and I kind of looked at XNA, and now it's like C# and managed, so I don't have to deal anything about memory. And I just looked at how easy this code was, and I just like, I'm stupid not to be involved in this. Like, I know all this stuff. I went to Game Fest, and I walked into the sessions by Epic, or by the guys who did, what's the Castlevania, the Metroidvania game, Shadow Complex.
Chair Entertainment.
Chair. I went to the sessions where they did this stuff, and I was blown away, and they were talking way over my head. But I walked into sessions where guys were actually discussing XNA, and these were guys that are professional game developers. I saw LucasArts talk about XNA games that they had shipped as XBLA.
Oh wow, I didn't even know that.
And I wish it was some girl like puzzle game. You play like a little girl protagonist.
Okay.
And they just kind of checked it out, and hearing them get caught up in XNA and get hung up on the garbage collector and get bitten by strings and all of this of like these were the things they were warning the developers against. I'm like, I know this shit like the back of my hand, man. Like I never would have made that mistake. Like that's fundamental.
Right, like that's rookie stuff. Come on now.
Yeah, Lucidity. George Klingerman in the chat has the name. That's the LucasArts XNA game. Now, of course, to them, they were kind of like, we're going to go back to what we know and our warm blanket. But they, seeing that they got stuck on these things, and it's like, no, I can totally make, a game. And we did, and we dove in, and, I didn't have to read as much and all that. So that kind of got me back in. But yeah, just the ease of everything's out there, and the tutorials, and the forums. And of course, I lurked for about the first 2 years of the XNA community on the XNA forums before I
think that's how most people are in forums too,
Yeah, I mean, that's just, you just kind of get a feel of the community and all that. But, I mean, I know when I first started grabbing, when community games launched, and I was just like,
oh yeah,
oh god, I gotta go download this. And I downloaded some shit, like, in the pit. And I'm like, alright, dude. Like, I get it, right? You're trying to, like, do this sound game. But there's no graphics to this game whatsoever. I'm also deaf in one ear, so, like, I can't even play the game.
You can't play the game.
No.
And it was difficult for me to play the game with 2 ears because it wasn't going through the speakers correctly.
And then the other games are, like, Sine Rider, like little dude surfing a sine wave.
Yeah.
And things like that. And I'm like, alright, Mike, like, you can do better than that. And that's allowed on the service. So that's the awesome thing of, like, they got to publish that. That's on a console, dude. That's on the mystical console that you thought you could never reach.
Right.
Here is this opportunity.
It's like, this is the next gen stuff right here in your hands.
Yes. And, so I still lurked a couple of years before we actually got serious about it. I think it took bringing Dylan on. And having somebody else is great to just force you to do those things. We're not all Dave Voyles, and we just can't all will ourselves to be something. But
you see how frustrating it is to learn these things, right?
Well, and it's needing somebody to, like, if you have to check in every week with somebody.
Right.
You don't like going, I didn't get anything done this week.
Yeah.
Like I made no progress. You want to have something to show, and that just kind of pushes you
It's like
on.
It's like an internal competition you're making up in your own mind,
So, speaking of access to information and everything, you got to go to GDC this year.
Oh, yes. This was my third California GDC and my fourth GDC overall. I went to Europe earlier this year.
Wow.
Or last year.
It's just, I want to pay you to live your life for a day. That's just...
Yeah, well, you know what, though? I work a lot. And when I'm not working, I'm just trying to learn how to get into games. So that's it. So, yeah, I got the best of both worlds. I'm not complaining either.
You married? Any children?
No, not married. No
secret.
That is. I can get up and go at a moment's notice, and that's the nice part. And I do.
And it's funny. Like every stage, I always went, oh man, I gotta keep this job and the security and this stuff, because I got rent.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh well, we got a house and got a wife, and I got to keep security, keep everything taken care of, and got a car payment.
The fewer responsibilities you have, the more you can kind of take these chances, take these risks.
And then it's like thinking like before though, when I was married, like I didn't really fucking have responsibilities. I just thought I did. And then later down the line of like having 3 daughters, I'm like I would just go back in time and bitch slap Mike and be like, what the fuck do you mean? Like in a few years you're gonna have 3 daughters, right?
Yeah, so you better get on it while you can.
Exactly. Just suck it up and eat some ramen for a while and, take a risk, man.
I know. That's the truth. That's what I wish more of these guys would do, or stay in a little bit. It's a Friday night. I'm sitting in trying to learn rookie stuff on another, tool because this is what you want to do. And you got to put in that work to kind of get where these higher ups are,
So, briefly hitting on GDC, I know you did go to, because we chatted about it over Twitter, that you went to the Windows session. I think this is a very similar Windows session to the one that was at Build.
Yes, it was.
Basically, here's WinRT. You did hit him up a little bit about XNA, and they said something that was kind of interesting, that they were patterning things off of XNA.
Right.
Now, what did you take away? Like, what was he meaning by that?
So by the way, like that quote was a direct quote because I when I sit in for these talks, I have like a little recorder just so I don't mess up these little details. So whatever he said there, that was exactly it. But for the most part, the way I took it was that there are no future plans for XNA, but that they were simply, transitioning to this new marketplace, Metro, using a lot of the functionality that we had received in XNA. So I don't think they're ready to announce anything just yet. Everyone's been like hush hush and mum about it when they're pretty open about just about everything else. So, in my mind, I think XNA is going away shortly, at least for the next generation, which probably won't happen for another year and a half or so. That's the way I see it.
To lay it out there, I mean, I don't want to over doom and gloom it,
Oh, yeah, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying, you're not really wasting your time either.
No, you're not. It's still valuable. I'm still entering Dream Build Play. And actively working on XNA. It's just that it doesn't seem like there's going to be future updates. And
correct.
Eric Raymond, back in his Cathedral and the Bazaar stuff, basically put forth that the value of software is in the support behind it, not the bits on the disk. Because when Photoshop CS7 comes out, Photoshop CS6 is worthless. I mean, you don't want it anymore. And
right, because there's no more support for it.
If the code was worth something, that wouldn't happen. It's not the code that's valuable, it's the people behind it. And so, when you aren't getting a signal that there's people behind XNA, the bits on disk lose value themselves because, it's like that support is key. This is a weird, twisted thing to root for, I guess, or spell out loud, but I still have a rough time as the way that they're launching Windows 8. I cannot see Windows 8 being adopted. I've shown it to my parents. I've gut checked it. I'm like, hey, check this out. This is the next version of Windows, and it's like my dad, my mom, they don't want it at all. Like, what is this? This is not. Where's my start menu? Where's my,
They've grown accustomed to what they have right now.
They have. And I have a hard time seeing how it's going to be commercially successful. Because I don't.
It's like, who's it appealing to? That's who I'm lost at.
What problem is it solving? What problem are people having right now that when they see Windows 8, they're like, oh God, I don't have to do that anymore? It's like when an iPad comes out, and it's like, yeah, I can, I don't need a full laptop to check email and play some games and and carry this around. This Metro desktop thing, it's like, you're not solving a problem for me. You're not, and you know what? I mean, Apple's great at telling me, here's a problem you didn't know you had, and you're like, what? You're right. I didn't know I had that problem.
Right, that's a problem. Everyone else thinks they can do that.
Only more Apple can solve my problem.
I mean, I used the MacBook Air for a while too, so I can understand.
So I wonder how it's going to play out the next few years at Microsoft when Windows 8 comes out. It doesn't hit the numbers they expect. What the blowback is going to be, what the attempts of change are going to be, and there may be something come out of that because the number one thing that Apple makes money on through its app stores are games. It changed Steve Jobs' opinion. Steve Jobs didn't give a crap about games until it made him billions of dollars.
Yeah, he didn't understand media at all before that point. He literally said, "Who is going to watch movies on these tiny little devices? No one's going to do that. Who's going to play games on these devices?" And now look, that is their brand. They are the kings of that. Yeah.
We pull in. I take when I have a daddy-daughter dinner sometimes, we go up to Sonic and order through Sonic, and then on the iPhone watch something off of Netflix.
Oh yeah.
So it changed his opinion of all this stuff, and he got behind it. And I could see something positive for XNA or managed DirectX coming out of that. Of when when the shit hits the fan of like, how do we get this stuff over here? We need the game developers that it's not the mainstream developers. It's not the AAA titles. They're not releasing well enough. They're not releasing fast enough at the volume of the App Store. And second is, they're really still struggling on figuring out. I mean, you look at Rage.
Wait, you're saying this is Apple or?
Well, just in general, like AAA developers, EA and publishers and like that. They really haven't figured out what works mobily. They've tried to bring their large properties to the mobile environment,
and then they've tried to create small stuff and.
Yeah, the best thing they can do is buy Angry Birds. They'll get it. They'll get there. But even when they do, they still do much more larger budget games. and some of the funnest games on the service. I just bought the new Radiant games, Fireball, SE. And, it's awesome, but all I'm doing is chasing my tail, basically. I don't know if it's a pacifism. It's a pacifism type game. And so it's a Geometry Wars pacifism. And the control, basically you have your thumb, and you move your thumb up, down, left, or right in the corner, but you can see the dot in front of your character that stays in the center, your little comet. And you're just basically chasing the dot. So you're really moving that dot around in front of the comet, and you're chasing it. And that's it. That's the whole game. And you're just trying to avoid as long as possible. And there's a couple power-ups that get in there, because it's Luke. And, it's like, he makes these really great, simple shooters. And
simplicity is key with his games. Beautiful, but simple.
I don't ever see an EA shipping that. Like, I don't see, I think until the publishers break up their studios and say, all right, guys, break up into 2 or 3 man teams and just start making games.
I don't see it happening either.
If they don't do that, I don't see them cutting in. So, back to forecasted failure of Windows 8. Windows 8 is very publisher-friendly. It's not very developer-friendly. I see all the same mistakes that they did on the Windows Phone happening again in Windows 8, and that's basically meaning they're tearing up the games. So, indie guy, you can do these things, but our publisher guy will have the live channel, they will have achievements, they will have leaderboards, they will have things that make their game more valuable than yours.
Right.
And it's not going to be appealing to indie gamers because you're not going to make revenue. It's going to be Xbox Live indie games all over again, or indie games on Windows Phone 7.
I say put them all on one stage and let them duke it out.
Which is what Apple and even Android does. Like,
right. There's no discerning from the indies over there to the AAAs. Just some of the indies are spanking the AAA guys over there just because they make simple, smart products and they can pump out games fast.
Stuff that works and doesn't crash often.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there's something, noble in that to say, like, your game competes on its own quality. It doesn't matter. You can't buy placement on there. You might be able to buy some ads on the App Store, but if they are there, I never see them because I'm always going into the top lists and seeing, what's everybody buying, what's everybody playing. I'm looking for something new, or recommendations or things like that. So, all right, forget all that. Other sessions. What else did you hit of interest to you? What was pretty cool that you saw at GDC this year?
Okay. Well, the first night, Sunday, IGN hosted this event for a bunch of indie journalists, about 50 of us, about 100 developers, maybe it's the other way around. Regardless, at their offices, it was Sunday evening, and it just gave us the opportunity to kind of sit there and interact one-on-one with these small developers and really get to know them and their titles. So they had things like Ian Stocker from Scapegoat. He was there.
Awesome.
The guys who did Monaco. There's another... it's an XNA title, or it was until that week. Great-looking game coming on XBLA. They were there. Vessel on Steam. So basically all small guys, Retro City Rampage. We had the chance to really sit down with these games, talk with these guys, understand them, where they're coming from, without all the glitz and glamour of a GDC or worry about being pushed aside. So that was an excellent event. I'd love to see something like that again. And also I got to see James Silva gave a speech on his XBLA title, Dishwasher Vampire Smile. So I just talked about the process of, developing basically as a one-man team. And he had Dustin Bird help out with the marketing, and later on, his now fiancee, Michelle Jewett, came on a bit later on towards the end, help out with art a tiny bit. So things like that, I think would be great for other developers, especially a lot of these XBLIG guys to go to and see. They want to get these big teams together. And a lot of times it's great because you have someone pushing you along and helping you out. But you see that it's very possible to make these games with, one person and get an XBLA contract. Put a little bit of polish into your work, and it works out pretty well. Also, we had a nice little XNA meetup. Got to meet a lot of the other guys. The Z-Man, one and only Andy Dunn, and his guys from Exacto Games. And the XNA meetup is something I look forward to every year. This is my second time doing that. Basically gives us about a 2-hour period at the Microsoft-sponsored area to sit down with other XNA developers and a bit of the Microsoft guys and just shoot the breeze, talk about how our games are coming along, what we have in the pipeline, get a little better understanding for what we can see in the future. But it's nice to finally be able to interact, in a physical environment with these people who you talk to online on a day-to-day basis. You're basically putting a face to the name.
I got to meet some of these guys at Game Fest in 08.
Oh, nice.
It was kind of cool. I didn't know as many as I know now.
Right.
And I definitely want to get back out there. And GDC is excellent.
That is literally my favorite week of the year every year.
So, okay, so you hit James Silva post-mortem. I want to say that there is a coverage of that on, like, Garma Sutra or...
Oh, yeah, I wrote it up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was there. I wrote a whole little write-up on that because it's inspiring to see things like that, Yeah,
I think the misleading thing with James Silva is the bastard is good at programming and design.
Yes.
And you shouldn't be allowed to be good at both.
Yeah, he's kind of got a knack for making games.
Yeah. He kind of like he's the total package,
Mm-hmm.
And he is really a one-man studio.
Yeah.
And you see that, and then you quickly realize, like, oh man, I can't do this because I need some other people to shore up some of the things that I don't have any knack or talent for.
Right.
With that, so. Did you hit any of the drama sessions? Did you hit, like, there was some drama come out of Indie Game the Movie? Well, did you get to see Indie Game the Movie?
Oh, okay. I did get to see Indie Game the Movie. I saw it on the Tuesday night screening. I actually thought that was very good. I'm not going to lie. I went in thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a bust. It's going to be some fanboys who just want to see games get made, and that's it. And it was actually quite the opposite. It was really, I don't know anything about the background of these two who put it together. It was a man and a woman, two Canadians, and they basically want to profile and study the games industry. So I don't know if they were fans of gaming before or what, but after the film, there's basically an open Q&A session. It was like a private screening in a small theater in San Fran. And afterwards I'd asked, did you guys find it difficult to strike a balance between pleasing fans of video games and film critics? And they said, yeah, it was very difficult. They had like 30 different edits of the film. And in the end, it showed. They legitimately did a good job of balancing film and gaming. So it'd been nice to see a little of more one side or the other, but I'm not sure to tell you the truth. So, basically what this movie did was it profiled the development behind Fez, so some of the trials and tribulations behind that. Now, Fez is also an XNA title by Phil Fish is like their lead. A small team of guys, also in Canada. And they have a lot of issues coming into that game. So basically followed that development as well as Super Meat Boy. So what happened is they didn't really know any of the drama that was going to lead up to the development of either of these games. They knew that Fez was in development for quite a while and having some difficulties with the two owners of the studio. They basically parted ways halfway through the game. And they're going to court.
You didn't know that Super Meat Boy had some pretty nasty things to say about XBLA?
Right. So you had no idea. And these guys didn't know it either. They just knew there was going to be two guys making indie games who want to profile it. And it just worked out perfect for them. So as you're watching this, you're seeing maybe 6 or 9 months before the launch of Super Meat Boy, how they're putting it together, explaining their lives, what they're sacrificing to do this. And then up until the day when it launches and some of the issues they ran into there. For example, it not showing up on Live or XBLA right away. Then also, it basically stops briefly after that. So a lot of the drama they had with Microsoft wasn't really showcased. But basically, at the day of the launch, they have one film crew at Edmund's house in California, one of the developers, and at the other guy, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, that the other half of the film crew was over there at his home because they live in California and North Carolina. So they were both there at the same time for about a week apart. Filming these scenes. So you're seeing their interaction with one another. Like one's texting the other on the phone or sending a message or trying to call like, well, are you up? Have you seen the sales? What's going on? Our game isn't on XBLA. So they're doing an excellent job of catching that drama. And same thing with Phil Fish and Fez. So it was great to capture that drama behind indie development. And somehow they managed to fit in Jonathan Blow there, who's the developer behind Braid and now soon to be some kind of maze puzzle game. I forgot what it's called. So he kind of...
The name on that one is... oh, crap. I can't believe I forgot that. I love Jonathan Blow. He's like, to me, he's like a Tim Burton of
yeah, you're right. He like kind of thinks outside the box. He's very outspoken. People kind of see him off as pompous.
Yeah, but I like.
He's passionate about what he does.
Exactly, and he goes off on. I think I can't remember the name of the game.
I know.
It's like Curves or The Witness.
The Witness. That's it. Thanks, George.
Thanks, George. Yeah, George does this all the time. Like he's got like just rolled up, and he's investing like all of his money from Braid into The Witness. I mean, if The Witness doesn't do well, he's broke. He didn't get a contract or a publisher. He's fronting that. And, I know like he can come off pompous or something like that or see a little abstract, but he's putting his money where his mouth is, so he has...
That's right. He wants to make something different. Yeah. So surprisingly, that movie actually turned out to be very well. And if it should be coming to theaters sometime soon, I would definitely suggest giving it a go.
I definitely want to try to catch it if it comes in the area. I hope they do some kind of online thing because, Knoxville, Tennessee is not a big stop for the indie films. So
so I definitely enjoyed that. That was another one of the events that we had.
Were you there for the panel? Because they apparently did an Indie Game the Movie panel with these guys.
Oh no, I didn't go to one of those.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, apparently they said something bad about Japanese games that blew up this week.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what happened there was Phil Fish, one of the developers behind Fez. He's a bit of an outspoken guy. He had made a knock about Japanese developers. He said, or Japanese games. Said, they all suck. They haven't innovated. Haven't done anything different. And since then, he's been like, the source of controversy. And well,
I understand because I was listening on Giant Bomb. He said those things, which were kind of sort of harmless because it's like he didn't say he said nothing specific about Japan. Like it wasn't racist.
Right. Just saying, like you guys haven't really made anything different.
Yeah,
that was all.
And I think there was that video I watched of Jonathan Blow where I think he even explicitly like calls out like Demon Souls as like being exceptions. Like it's not all of them, but in general, what his problems were and things like that. But I guess when I was listening to Giant Bombcast, when people started like on Twitter, like, hey, what's this all on? He tweeted back something like, eat a dick.
Oh,
so
that's not smart.
That probably didn't help matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I heard
you
that,
see how rambunctious, gamers are.
Yeah, you really don't want to shine too bright of a spotlight on many segments of gaming. We're not ready for that. Or maybe we just need to have that spotlight shined on, to...
No, because it always ends badly for the good ones.
Yeah. Well, it ends badly. Not really. It moves stuff forward and it gets a conversation to happen. Because I realized that I had read a lot about Japanese game development came from this incident, and now people are posting more in-depth articles of like Japan's kind of stagnated and its development is very patented and
I think
extra credits. Now, I don't think extra credits had this written because they have to produce, obviously, their stuff. So it was timing on their part. But their latest extra credits episode on JRPGs versus Western RPGs essentially said that, like, Japanese RPGs got sucked into the beautiful cinematic sequences.
Yep.
And left gameplay and story behind. It just really became about watch this beautiful scenery.
Right. And I would agree. But you look at, I think what really started that controversy was Kenji Inafune, who was previously with Capcom. He was like the designer behind Mega Man, I guess you'd say. He had said a few months ago that Japanese games, exactly like you were saying, have basically stagnated. They haven't done anything, haven't changed. And it's a broad generalization, obviously. But then I guess other people kind of hop on that bandwagon. And that's why I said he's trying to think outside the box, do something a little differently. But even if you've played Final Fantasy 13, whatever the hell is the one that came out 2 years ago, you'll see that exactly like you were saying, proves your point. They got caught up in cinematics, forgot gameplay. Anyone who tells you that they know what was going on in that game, the story, is lying to you. I'm telling you right now. I tried going through it twice. My brother beat it, and after he beat it, he tried explaining to me, and he goes, Dave, only reason I got it is because I read the hell out of the Wikipedia about 4 times. I mean, they get so polluted. I don't know.
I've never been a fan of JRPGs. Even back in the day, they never grabbed me.
It requires a patience like no other.
And so
I like JRPGs.
she did, and I
did not like 13.
Well, when 13 came out, I sat down to okay, I'm going to give JRPGs their due. I'm going to give them their chance and dive back into this. And it's 2 hours later, fuck this.
Yeah, I ran the same issue. I mean, I was about 10 hours in, and I said to my brother, look, does this get any better? He goes, no. I said, so linear. Final Fantasy generally pretty open. He goes, it gets so good at 24 hours in. Just keep playing. I said, 24 hours? Man, I've got no time to play games. If this game doesn't catch me in 5 minutes, it's going to the back. That's it. 24 hours. That's 6 games for me now.
And it's I don't want to say it's JRPGs because I think I'm getting to the point where I'm going to start just getting out of bad games because Dragon Age 2, Western RPG, and
yes.
I think I'm about to say, you know what? I'm 6 hours in, and I'm just going to cut my losses and put that up on GUX or whatever and trade that away.
You see, this is a point I wanted to bring up before. Last week's show, you guys brought up Dragon Age 2 a bit as well. I actually enjoy Dragon Age 2 a bit more than 1. And I know I'm the minority there. It's much, actually, obviously much more simplified than 1 and linear, but it's very straightforward, much easier to follow. But it's definitely not for everyone.
They like Dragon Age 2 because it had things, but better than 1?
Well, no, it's not necessarily better. I enjoyed it more. But 1 was better in many more areas.
You have a future in politics, Dave.
Yeah.
So, it depends on what the definition of is. That
right.
And that well, all right. So did you get to go into any crazy deep technical sessions that you found valuable there?
I went to programming or doing AI programming. And, when I go, I come from a bunch of different perspectives, and then I have to do some stuff, for our site and kind of get a journalistic perspective. But a lot of times I go just to learn and how to do game development. So I'll try to go to some absurd speeches every year. I went to technical art last year and another artist roundtable just to hear them rant. And this year I went to AI programming. And it's interesting to see how different occupations within one field like and dislike each other. So the AI programming is very interesting. It was hosted by one of the guys who were doing, who's working on Skulls the Shogun, which is an XBLA title, also done in XNA, as well as the guy who did Darkness 2, and finally someone else who worked on Reckoning Kings of Almar. So it was 3 completely different perspectives from 3 large and small studios, and they discussed how they implement AI within games, and one of which was, Skulls of Shogun's basically an RTS for the most part, an XBLA. And he was discussing how, distances affect, whether or not characters will engage in combat or not engage, how to implement different sorts of intelligence within these characters. Same time, something like The Darkness, right? When you're playing that, there's literally thousands of different lines of dialogue, and they had to figure out how characters will respond to one another. So you may shoot out a light, and you have character A may say, oh my God, he got the light, and character B has to respond in some manner that'll make it sound like they're having an active dialogue with one another while being completely unaware. It's a computer, it only knows what you tell it to know.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last part they covered there was in Reckoning. They discussed their battle system or their combat system. So how most games, they kind of turn out to be like those kung fu movies, what they called a kung fu circle, where in Batman suffered terribly from this in the latest iteration in Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, where you're basically in the middle of a fighting ring, and then you have these enemies who are in a circle around you, and one by one they come out from this side, and you fight that one guy. He's beat up. Then the second guy comes over, and you fight him. Everyone else is just standing there. So there's a lot more that goes on behind that, and it was a nice little discussion to understand the thoughts behind these guys and what they're thinking, how it gets there. And finally, the last panel that really caught my attention, it was one by the guys at Sony who were discussing their indie motives, I guess you'd say. So talking about their PSN suite, and as well as the ability to publish indie games on things like Android-enabled devices. So they have what's called Xperia Play. which was phones and soon-to-be tablets, in addition to their Vita, which recently launched a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So indies have the chance to push their games on there, and I'm pretty sure PS3. Actually, no, I'm certain it's PS3 because that was one of the games they showcased. I don't remember what the hell the name was, but I'll find a video for you guys. But basically, it's their equivalent to XNA. And that they're trying to get as many indies as they can. At the same time, they're trying to fund indie titles through something called the Pub Fund. And that's basically their way of getting indies on board while guaranteeing money, not up front, but the day the game launches. So, for example, the Pub Fund's been around for 3 years, and they've invested about $20 million into acquiring talent and distributing money to indies. So say you guys had a game over there at GameMarx, right? You wanted to approach Sony and say, hey, we want to release it on Vita. We want to use the Pub Fund. What can you do for us? Well, you guys will discuss before the game is released. You'll say, okay, I think it's going to do about this much in sales, and they'll agree or disagree, and you negotiate some number. What happens is they can't pay you up front to support your development costs, so they're not keeping you alive. You've got to do that on your own. But on day one, you'll be guaranteed X amount of dollars, as you negotiated previously. And after 45 days of sales, you'll begin to receive royalties as well. So whatever they make from days 0 through 45, that's what they keep. But you're guaranteed, say, $100,000. So the day your game launches, you will receive a check for $100,000. So it's a nice bit of security to have.
Well, and
but
it
at the same
gives
time,
them a reason to promote your game, because if you
right.
sign a check, you get a check for $100,000, and they promote the hell out of it and get $10 million. Obviously they did great, but when that 45 is up, you're going to continue. That sounds like a great deal. I don't know if you've seen this too. Unity has a service called, is it Unite? No. Shit. I should have double-checked the name of his service. They have a service where they will take your game, port it to another platform, market it on that platform, and take 20% of the sales. So you have your finished Unity project, and I saw this. In fact, I do have it up because Luke. Here we go. Yep. Radiant Games here. The Super Crossfire hit BlackBerry Playbook. Union is the service on Unity.
Okay.
And so basically, he gave his Super Crossfire code up to the Unity guys. They ported it to BlackBerry. Now, they will take back the porting costs. So, depending on what they had to do to get it working on the platform, I guess there'll be some hourly rate or some billing or some such. Like, hey, we need a couple $1,000s for porting it. So, okay, so the first $1,000 or so goes straight to Unity. And then after that...
That sounds fair. Right.
Yeah.
It's because Luke's not having to do anything more, and his game is going to alternative platforms.
Yeah, for doing nothing? I mean, hey, will you port this? I mean, that sounds... So
they're basically taking the risk, the developers who are porting this game over.
Sony Fund and things like this is kind of cool, kind of new approaching. I'd love to see Sony embrace just a crazy, just be the Steam console.
I know.
Like you're the underdog now. You have to dethrone Microsoft. Right. And I know this is not your DNA. Sony, I know, it's our deal. No, this isn't your DNA. You really need to open up and just let it run rampant on there to because Microsoft has the big publishers in their pocket, and if it's not exclusive to the 360, it's like, well, we're going to get all the maps first.
Yeah, that's true. But you see a lot of people, complaining about the tight ecosystem behind XBLA, and in some ways it's great for a developer and a gamer, and in other ways it's not so good. I mean, one example I cite is I played Dungeon Defenders, or I was for a little bit. I had it on iOS on the iPad. I loved that game. And then I went
to PC. I got it on Steam, and I play it with my dog.
Right.
And
So the advantage with that is that you and I can play with each other, and our devices are completely unaware of what we're using. So we're playing a multiplayer game. I can be on my iPad, and you're on your PC. They don't care. They don't know. You don't know. But at the same time, it doesn't work on the iPad, someone's saying. Okay, but I know it'll work across multiple devices, though. I'm sorry. Someone in the chat was saying. I guess talking about the chat. Right.
Oh, okay.
This is Unreal. This is an Unreal Engine title, by the way. And one that Microsoft heavily, Unreal Epic heavily promotes.
You can get on Steam you can get all the code to Dungeon Defenders.
Oh yeah, well that's one of the selling points for Unreal or Epic, I should say, that they freely give it to us, and I look through it on a weekly basis because it really helps me understand other parts. Not only that, but so the point I was getting is that Live is very closed off. That's their Chinese wall, you know. So I went to go with Mike Wall, our editor-in-chief, to play with him, but he can only play with other people on Live. So he has a high-level character on Live. I have my high-level character on my iPad. We can't play together. Those are the only two platforms that can't play. Live keeps to itself, and that's it. That's a damn shame because there's so many other platforms that'd be nice to play with other guys on. So it's nice to have that closed system, but at the same time, it's a bit of a disadvantage too, you know, especially as more and more devices are having the ability to play a lot of these games. You know, iOS is really catching up in terms of graphics, not so much with controls, but you know, other features.
It's a different type of game.
Not for everyone and not for every game.
Right, and you kind of got to figure it out. Like I'm addicted to Hero Academy on iOS.
I have it, but I haven't even gotten into it yet.
When you get on there, letter and friend us.
Yeah, Vinyl and Archidrag, just hit us up, and I'm not going to go easy on you. I need to write my strategy guide. I need to, because I want people to read the strategy guide because I need better challenges. I know that sounds boastful, but I'm losing very few, and the ones I'm losing is because I'm doing stupid stuff that I know I'm just like, I'm just gonna throw this guy out here.
Yeah,
I hear everyone is like hooked on that game.
It's Words with Friends, but with swords.
Swords with Friends.
Swords with Friends. Right. So and that works wonderful on this. The Radiant game stuff that Luke has put out is so jump in, jump out. Jetpack Joyride by the Half Brick guys.
Yep.
What else do I spend? The Hypership Out of Control.
Yeah.
By who did Hypership Out of Control? Damn, George left to go drink.
That's Fun Infused Games.
Fun Infused Games.
Chris Steele Infused.
Yeah, I was gonna say Chonar because I know he helped like port the.
Right, he ported it.
Thing, but yeah, it wasn't his design. Like, it's just so easy. You jump in and out, and it's such a quick play, and you can just, get in and out when, that's what you do.
And some games do it better than others. Some games do it better than others. I just started playing Sword and Sorcery, and it's pretty bad at that. I'm not gonna lie.
Is that the RPG?
That's the adventure game by Cappy Games. It's like Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP. Outstanding game, but sadly, the second you close the game, it'll start from your scene, but it'll start over.
Oh. Yeah,
yeah, so you got halfway through a scene, it's got to start fresh.
Like, I looked at it, and it's like, I don't want to play a more involved game on my iPhone.
Right.
I want that saved for the console experience, so...
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting. Now, you're playing Dungeon Defenders, you said iOS, or is it iPad or an iPhone?
I have both, but I play it on the iPad. And it handles pretty well. Some games handle better than others, I'm not going to lie.
So, yeah, that's what I was saying. So I hovered over that for I've never hit the purchase button on it.
I have for $1, so I picked it up.
Oh, did you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like on sale for Christmas like 2 years ago.
Ah, crap, I wish I would have grabbed that. That would have been easy. Yeah, so I'm looking at it, I'm like, I love this on PC, but I don't know if I'm going to play this on iOS.
Right.
First of all, I couldn't jump in, jump out. Like, you're pretty much locked into playing a whole level. Not just a wave, but a level. So I don't know how that was going to work out. We got way off. So you're at the Sony.
Yeah, so Sony. Yep.
So Sony, and then anything other than the funding?
That was all really they touched on. I mean, they had a bunch of slides
now, do they have
basically
a service? Can like Xbox Live Indie Games, can I just go pay $90 a year and upload games on the PlayStation?
Yes, from what I understood. I'm pretty sure it's how it works. The problem with Sony is, and I was ranting about this earlier, is that they have way too much going on. They have PSN, which is now SEN, but they have the PSN Suite, and then they have the Pub Fund, but they have Vita, and they have Xperia Play, so you can use that as well. And they've got to come up with one or two systems and go with that, because people are very confused. You have their storefront, right, which you can use on PlayStation, but at the same time, you have this little odd thing that you can wander around as like a 3D avatar in your own little world. Like, I don't know what that is. I think they're making games for that. I'm not really sure.
The at-home thing?
Yeah, Sony at home. Like, there's too much going on. They've got to pick something because some people are saying, no, you can't make indies on PS3. Someone's saying this today. I said, no, you very much can. I know for a fact because not only did they highlight this, but they had an indie guy come up say, yes, I just made this game. Here's my game. It's coming out here in a couple weeks.
Okay, yeah, I need to check into that. I wonder what the Unreal and the Unity support, because I know on Unity has like Xbox and Wii versions, but there's like a little thing of like, hey, you got to have like a publisher's contact before we'll give you that code.
Okay.
And I don't know if they'll give you a PSN version or whatever the indie service is. So that I can just say, like, hey, I'm going to, target this for more. The most frustrating thing is that there isn't really a 2D framework. So all the stuff that I want to do is 2D, and we're looking at Unity for doing it to 2D stuff, but it would be nice. To pull in some news, just so we don't repeat ourselves, I grabbed the bit that the GameMaker studio pricing was revealed. And so GameMaker is a 2D game engine.
Yep.
And it's okay. I mean, I've used it, and it looks
pretty cool. Looks simple enough. I've seen guys do cool things with it.
And I use it for getting kids involved in making stuff. The studio program is going to cost $99, and then you're going to pay $200 to add on iOS, Android, HTML5. Nokia Symbian. I don't see anybody paying $200 for that. But those are each. That's not like
each. Oh, that sucks.
Exactly. And that was my reaction. It's kind of like I think you just price yourself out of the market, guys, because
it's like you're not really the biggest. Yeah.
And you're no Unity.
Yeah. Or now, little PSA. Unity for iOS and Android are free for the next month. So even if you aren't sure if you want to use it, hell, go download Unity, go to the website, and literally you just send in your email and your name, and you get the license key for iOS and Android. So if you don't think you're going to use it now, you might as well have it in your pocket.
Yeah. I had everybody on our team, even my brother, who's mainly in charge of marketing and promotioning, go register. So I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. We may use it for level building and stuff. The audio interference is just Dave's mic, and that's a feature.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Hang on.
It goes robot every so often.
Yeah, it goes, and then like 30 seconds later, not even that long, it's out again.
Yeah.
And the guy on the phone is Dave Voyles too. He was just referred to as the phone guy.
Yeah.
The phone guy.
Switch up a little bit. So,
sure.
You have had a lot of success getting mainstream gaming press, and I know that doesn't mean a whole lot because gaming press really isn't mainstream, but the bigger mainstream, what we think of as mainstream in our little world.
I like the Kotakus and IGNs. The
Kotakus, joysticks, on that, and some of the others, and picking it up, and you did a lot of work behind the Summer Uprising.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice do you have to the indie developers? Like if you sit down, or if Dave Voyles was up at GDC with the how to market your shit topic.
I just happen to have done that last week.
Did you have a panel at GDC?
Yeah, I did a panel by myself for an hour on how we marketed the indie game Summer Uprising.
All right, well, give us the outline here. Give us the Cliff's Notes. Okay.
So the slides I'll make them freely available as soon as I can figure out how to get them online.
There's a site called SlideShare.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the name of it, and I mean that's what they do. They just host slides, and then you can play the slides back in your browser, so you don't have to like download PowerPoint or anything.
That is
Keynote.
great.
I don't know if you want to, if you swing that way. Keynote. I mean, your preference,
no.
Love you either way.
I mean, anything's better than PowerPoint. I'll tell you that much. Okay, so I will definitely do that then. So the gist of it was really, I think my background in, I don't want to say journalism because I'm not a journalist. I'm like a guy who just kind of writes about video games.
You had press.
You had background though in communications, though. You said
right, and then I wrote for like college papers and high school papers and some other sites. So I guess you'd say journalism. but I don't want people to get the wrong idea about me. So I think that really helped out in that from going to these different events, I got to work in the press rooms, network with other journalists and media. And then from there, they kind of see that you have an idea of what you're talking about. But at the same time, I get to hear a lot of their rants about what they hate and what they do like. So, they won't really pick on one developer or one press release or something, but we'll say like, wow, I received this thing the other day and it was horrendous. And at the same time, they'll say, well, I received this press release and it was perfect, and here's what was good about it. And from there, I just kind of picked up on things. And largely, it came down to the fact that you've got to respect the journalist's time as much as they have to respect yours. In that, imagine these guys are receiving hundreds and hundreds of tips or emails a day saying, hey, check this out, or hey, cover my game, do that. And, they're people like anyone else. So they're going to naturally lean towards their friends or things that interest them. But additionally, for the most part, if you're going to get something out in the press, you've got to do the work for them. People are, inherently lazy, right? So you've got to have a story that writes itself. Journalists want to do as little work as possible, so they can get as many stories up each day that are interesting. That's going to drive as much traffic. So Ben Kuchera, who was previously at Ars Technica, and I runs the Penny Art, their whole Penny Arcade thing. So I saw him do a speech a few months ago. It's online. It was at a development thing called Run Jump Dev. And you can see this video online. And about 45 minutes of him talking to indies on how to market their games. At one point that he said that really stuck out with me was, I previously mentioned, have the story write itself. So an example he used was he was speaking to a developer. I don't remember what game or what developer this was. But it was a guy saying, so I'm in the Midwest, making this game and blah, blah, blah. He's describing it. Ben goes, that's just not a very interesting game. Like, I can write about it, but it's not going to get me any, it's not even interesting me. How can I make it interesting for other people? But the guy goes on and says, well, yeah, so I don't really have a place to develop my home. So I'm a farmer. I go to my barn. I got these chickens running around. So they drive me crazy. I put on headphones in my barn so I can just zone them out, listen to music while I program. And he goes, that's the story. That's the angle. You have the game, not interesting, but now I'm having the developer's side, and I'm saying, here's a guy who wants to learn how to make games, is making it, has no resources, and he's in his barn with chickens behind him. It's funny, it's interesting, it kind of gives other people hope and perspective. So the more that you sell your idea like that, the better it works out for everyone. He's having to do less work for a story that's entertaining and can get people talking about things. So as someone trying to sell their games or get their word out there, that is your best bet. Do the work for other people. Find out what your angle is, not necessarily for your game, but for your studio, for your personality.
I've said on here often that as indies, sell your story, because that's your strongest asset.
Yes.
Everybody loves a David and Goliath, and it's like, you're David, man, and sell that. Tell me what's unique about me, your dream or your how you're scrapping and you're making it. People love Minecraft half because it was a great game, half because they love telling you about Notch. And how awesome of a guy he is.
Right. And that's really what's going to get you in the press. Is they want to hear your story. So people who make games and have no drama behind it, people are addicted to drama. That's the truth about it. They want to know what's going on, how it came to be, why is it interesting? And like you're saying, your story, what separates you from everyone else? And everyone's unique in their own way, but you've got to find out what makes your story unique. So in addition to that, I would say go out and reach out to the press. Twitter is an invaluable tool, and I don't see enough of these developers using it, and it drives me crazy. So you'll meet someone really, really cool at an event and say, I want to keep up with him, see what he's doing, learn a little bit more. But he doesn't have a Twitter. There's nobody to talk. Or these guys say, I don't know any journalists. Well, it's because you're not online having a dialogue. And Twitter now gives us all the opportunity to make our network larger than ever. So you don't even have to have social skills because you never even have to meet these people. You can talk to them behind your computer or your wall. So I'd say for networking, your best bet, hop on Twitter, make a name that's easy to remember. Like mine is Dave Voyles. That's it. There's no confusing it, because you see me and you'll see my face is on there and my name. So if you do see me at an event, or anyone who follows that similar template of having your real picture and your real name, it's very easy to understand. But follow a bunch of journalists or a bunch of people in the community you're a part of, like the development community for XNA or whatever, and just watch their dialogue go back and forth. See who they follow. And kind of chirp in, tweet, as they're having little conversations. But you don't have to be witty. Twitter's already got enough people like that. But if they ask a question, give them an insightful answer. Or if you read a piece of their work, or someone makes a game that you enjoyed, let them know. Say, hey, look, I really enjoyed this article you wrote, and it resonated with me because blah, blah, blah. People enjoy that. They want to be acknowledged for their work. They might not always mention it, but everyone in every fashion, it feels good when someone says, hey, I read your work, or I played your game. I liked that. That was good.
The interaction on Twitter, commenting on previous articles or reviews that the journalist has written, getting out there, you're slowly like building some mental capital with me. And
yes.
I won't know why, but like you'll send that email, the big one, right? We're releasing the game email.
Right.
And I know Dave Voyles. I know of him. I know, and that's going to give you 15 minutes of my time to actually read your email, click your links, view your content. Because I'll be honest, when we were doing this stuff for GameMarx, I mean, you get a lot of stuff coming in, and maybe it's not the best way to do it, but the easiest way to deal with that stuff is like people who have their shit in order get marked, and the people who don't get the bit bucket. Like I don't have time to try to Google you and figure out who you really are and where's the site information on your game and can I get a gameplay video. The press releases that are right up front, here's my Twitter, here's my website, here's the video, here's some screenshots, here's some, copy description of the game, and it's all laid out there, like here's a dossier on my game.
Right.
Are excellent. And if you can go that one step further, and it's like, I recognize your name because you've been emailing me before, you're on Twitter following me, you've commented on the site, it's like, you have my attention now.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how often people remember you. So even with
use your real name, use your company's name. Just make
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Stupid. I was like, if you don't want to use your real name, use your company's name. Just don't sound stupid.
Right. And make add some personality behind that. People don't forget those things. I had to ask for a press asset from the guys at Epic at GDC. So I go back and forth with some of their programmers, some of their PR guys, whatever, on Twitter. And then I'd email this woman, Dana Cowley, email her asking for a press asset. So I just say, hey, look, would it be possible for you to get this? And she goes, oh, hey, I remember you from Twitter. I'm thinking, like, wow, I'm surprised. We've only gone back and forth a few times over the last year or so, but that stuck with me too. The fact that you can only have maybe a couple of sentences back and forth, but as long as they're insightful and they're something that resonates with a person, then they will remember you. And Twitter makes it so easy to network today. But like you're saying, have your information out there. I get the same thing. I get tons of emails every day, or, hey, can you write up about this game, or do you mind covering that? And I would love to help people out, but you guys have the same problem. We only have so much time, and you've got to make it worth everyone's effort, So by having all of your contact information in your email, that's a small step that goes a long way. When Chris and I are first gathering people to put together Indie Game Summer Uprising, first thing I did was go to Dream Build Play, and I looked at some of the great guys and great titles that were being contributed. It was a project and a half to get the contact information for these people. Half of the problem was that Dream Build Play doesn't have most of the contact info for these guys on their little dossiers or whatever. But then even if I go to someone's YouTube page to see a clip of their game, they don't have their email, their Twitter, their team's Facebook page, whatever, their Skype. So after a few times, I say, you know what? After 3 minutes, I'm gone and I'm on to the next one. I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's it. Make yourself as accessible and available to everyone else as you possibly can, and offer positive criticism on other people's work. I enjoyed this because, or I really enjoyed this, but I didn't like that. Here's why. Help people. They want feedback, positive or negative, and just make sure you do it in a not so witty or, not always funny kind of way. Be insightful. People like that. So yeah, I guess that's my best piece of advice to other indie developers is we're all here to network and grow. Everybody wants to know everybody. So one of the common things going around the press rooms, these events is, man, I love working with indies so much more than AAAs. They're not trying to hold anything back. They're not worried about what they're going to say. They give me a straight shot. I ask a question. There you go. If a journalist writes you a question or asks you something, you try to get back to them in a timely fashion, and they'll remember that. They want to get your work up there. They're approaching you because they want your work.
Yeah, and they're used to dealing with the larger studios that it's like, I can't say anything. I can't say what we're working on, or we're not talking about that bit yet, or,
right.
It all has to be blessed, and you only get to see what the publisher has approved. And when you talk to an indie developer, there's no...
Like, here it is.
Yeah, here it is. Show it all. Don't worry about trying to hide something for a big surprise, because that may be your moment that propels you forward. So don't risk that. Don't risk that that's the story that Ben sees, and then Ben's blogging about you on Penny Arcade, and all of a sudden, it's like Steam's knocking on the door, and that it's crazy how some of these things go.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very small industry. I cannot stress that enough.
To that, and
don't want to say anything bad.
You hit a few seconds ago too about positive feedback.
Yep.
As a reviewer, obviously we're going to do negative things, but and criticize a game or be critical of the game. But you're not a game reviewer. You're a game developer, and it is a small community, and it may not even be like, hey, like this guy then was later in a position that came back here or something like that. When I would write about somebody or look to bring somebody on the show or do something, at GameMarx, or even just checking up on the developer as I write a review, I would kind of like get, ooh, this guy's kind of loud and obnoxious, and it's like I go through and I write the review, but it's like he's not building a cache where like his next game is going to get immediate GameMarx coverage,
right?
Whereas Luke and Radiant Games, is out there, and I believe Luke does it, but I may be confusing Luke with Robert Boyd over at Cthulhu's and Cthulhu Saves the World and Z-Boyd Games.
I think you're thinking of Robert Boyd.
Robert regularly writes reviews on games, mainstream games, but he regularly will every now and then post some thoughts. But it's almost kind of interesting because it's not your typical review. It's like a developer's review. It's like him teasing apart something, deconstructing it, and the way they build this hamburger is interesting, but with the cheese on the bottom, it's getting into the grease, and I didn't like the way that meant. I would put the cheese on top of the burger, and put a nice mayo layer under the bottom, but so
I'll offer constructive criticism. It goes a long way.
Yeah, just be careful to make sure it is constructive and in a positive tone, because I spoke with some other, so when the rating stuff was going around, and I was doing all my numbers on there, unfortunately I didn't get that reblogged enough. I didn't get that moved up enough. Simply because I don't think I was writing a story that could be really written easily. Like, you couldn't just look at...
There were a lot of details behind it.
Yeah, there was. It was like, hey, I'm explaining the entire case. I got a lot of math. I got a lot of numbers here. And I'm also not saying anything the numbers don't prove. I was kind of like trying to be fair about it and all that. And it's like, that's not what Joystick wants. Joystick writes 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, that's true. You need to send it to somewhere that's going to be more long form. Yeah,
and so it's like, okay, I need to get that into Joystick bite form. And I wouldn't do that. But I was having some conversation with some of them, and I'm not going to name names. But I did get to like, hey, let's get on Skype real quick, and I'll send you an Excel document, and then I'll explain that Excel document, and you can do whatever you want with it, right? Of course, those always went like, yeah, I'm looking at what now? Standard deviations, what? Way out in left field, and things like that. But then I took a moment to ask them, like, hey, we're new at this game reviewing thing, and you guys get this hate mail? You know?
Us, you're saying?
And they would say, yeah, we do get the hate mail. And more often than not, it would say, like, it comes more from the indie developers than the mainstream.
Right.
You know, so while they have the access, it's kind of like they lose their professional cool. And it may suck, guys. And, you know, like, I know with Inca Blocks, there were some reviews written, and you wanted to go, did you honestly fucking play the game? I mean, seriously, if you would have hit start on the main screen, I don't see how you could have said that next thing that you said. And you can't do that. Because you'll go in, there's a bozo bit, right? And mentally you track all these people that you know, and on some of them, you flip the bozo bit. Like, that's just a bozo, alright?
Mm-hmm.
Once you get that bit flipped on you, it's hard to get it unflipped. So, you know, you just have to, like, suck it up, and, you know, what I did on our reviews on Inca Blocks was go, like, thank you for the coverage, we love it, I know that you had all these issues with the game, and, you know, I'm working on what I could do better, and then I would take one of the issues, and just specifically ask, it's like, hey, you said this here, and, you know, I did this thing that didn't work for you, because you know, obviously you didn't see it. But I did this thing, and that didn't work. And, you know, any ideas of what we could have done? And, you know, I even had one guy come back and go like, wow, holy shit, I have no idea how I missed that. That's front and center. That was in my face, but yet I missed it. Yep. And, you know, at that point, you just chalk it up to, like, game design. And, like, you know, hey, you can miss the obvious sometimes. But you got to stay positive, guys. You cannot... don't go on Indie Gamer Chick. I've seen them, they've done this on GameMarx, and we've called them on it, and you do this on Indie Gamer Chick, and she calls you on it. Do not register fake accounts to act shocked and indignant.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
You know details that nobody else knows about this game. It's pretty obvious.
Yes, and you know what? Nobody comes and talks about the value of a game for $1 as an argument except the developer.
Yeah.
Real gamers don't barge in and go like, yeah, but it's only 99 cents, and that is an amazing value. Nobody says that. That's a dead giveaway. You know, at least if you're going to do it, spend some effort and, like, you know,
find out why people felt that way.
Go tell your friends. I think that's the best retaliation one I've seen so far, is a guy sent out a Facebook message of like, hey, this guy trashed me, and his Facebook friends came over, and they all posted, you know, could you do this? Now, unfortunately for him, I have the referral logs to all the comments.
Yeah.
And I see they all came off of a Facebook message. So, you know.
You see what's going on.
I still flipped the bozo bit. That's what happened there.
Yeah. But, I mean, you raise a good point there, because, you know, we do... those little, like, trial reviews. So we basically play every XSplit game every week as it's coming out. And I'll often get an email from a developer a few days after saying, like, you know, hey, you kind of, you know, trashed my game here. What's going on? And the way we do this is we play the trial of every game. So we've got 7 minutes to make a decision. All right. So I won't trash games. I will stand by everything I write on every one of these. And I would love it if more guys would come to me and ask, why did you write this? And recently got an email from a guy, and he was very polite about it, and he explained, you know, I saw you felt this way. Well, you know, here's why you shouldn't about the game. And he raised a lot of very valid points on his title, but at the same point, I said, look, I've got 7 minutes to do this trial. I'm coming in on a blank slate as if anyone else in the marketplace was coming in. So if you haven't caught my attention, or if I don't know all these things you're telling me in the first 7 minutes, I'm probably not going to find it out later on. It's like the people who spend all that time making content for the end boss. Most people are never going to get to that point in the game. So, you know, grab someone's attention in the first few minutes. Otherwise, they've got a carrot dangling in front of them in 20 different directions from different games. So I think he understood it afterwards, but I get a lot of emails about that. And that's why I tell guys, you have a trial. You have 7 minutes. Don't make it a tutorial. Make it 7 minutes of me having an absolute blast in this game that I can get to as easily as possible.
And I think you just pointed out something else, too. Most of these guys reviewing the indie games are happy to explain to you, like, we're rooting for you. And
oh, yeah.
you want to learn, like, come on, man, go back to Cthulhu Saves the World. All right, wonderful, that's great. Go play Molly the Were-Vampire, you know, or go play Epiphany in Space. In fact, I find it's hilarious because, like, I think he took those off the website. If I see him, I'm going to give him a little flack of, like, editing history a little bit, you know, because it's like, where are your text adventures, man?
Yeah.
But and it's like, I love the story because I get to tell, like, now this guy that you see that's making the Penny Arcade game, right? And he made this Cthulhu and he made Breath of Death. Well, like a couple of years before that, he was just making text adventures.
Right.
So in the span of, you know, these 4 years, look where he's gotten to. I love telling that story because it's an encouraging story. But, you know, he's obviously went out there, failed, learned from it, and, you know, added to that, on the next, time through. Now, let me ask you something on playing, every game.
Sure.
Did you guys do that because we started doing that?
I have no idea, to tell you the truth. I know you guys did it, and when you stopped covering it, I got so upset. I loved hearing you guys talk about that because it'll like reinforce ideas that I felt, but at the same time, it'll give me a different perspective. Because I'll sit there and think like,
it was such.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, they felt the same way too. That's good.
During the week, that, you know.
Oh, it is.
There's no way we could keep doing that.
But you guys would go into depth for like a few minutes. You had that cool background music I always liked that kept looping over and over. But that was like my favorite freaking. Oh, I didn't even know that.
Well, they used to do the Nintendo downloadable titles.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, I used to do them in mock voices too. I don't know, like, if you followed way back. I would make funny voices, you know, to read the game descriptions in. Mm-hmm. And I got that from the Giant Bombcast too. I left that aside, you know.
As did they.
But I kept the shop music. What they play on Giant Bomb when they were doing the Nintendo downloads was the Wii Shop music.
Right.
So I just went into my royalty-free collection and looked for something similar, and did that. No, I kind of noticed, like, I told Dylan, like, it seemed to me, and I don't know if this is just selection bias or just me noticing, I'm like, you know, after we started, like, every week, every game, making the thing.
I love that. I wish you guys would still do that.
I've noticed, like, these other 3 sites do every week, every game now. You know?
Yeah, I think it was Mike's idea, and I don't know if he got it from you guys or what. But whoever started it, and I'm going to say it's you because you've been around much longer than us.
I'm glad to watch this get around because, like, before, people were not every site, but, you know, they're making a judgment like, hey, I looked at these 3 this week, you know, or things like that. And I like reading the roundups. I do like listening to you guys talk about them on AO, and I do like is it Extra Guy? Somebody does a roundup of, like, play these, maybe these, skip those.
Yeah. Right. See what's worth your time and what's not.
Which I feel pretty honored because Inca Blocks made a maybe these level thing on that. So, alright. Well, I got, I didn't grab a whole bunch, but I did grab some news items this week.
Surely.
And XBLA going to 400 gamer score in April. And this is just salt in the wound for me of, like,
I know. So when's XBLA getting them?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, these are valuable and have something, except we'll just print them out like Germany did with currency after, you know, World War One. And that's just. And then also, I'm like, are you going to go back and retroactively give me 400 points for some of these games? That'd be nice.
Yeah, because some people are achievement whores, you know.
Like me.
I know you're big into it.
I've fallen away. Steam has actually broken me of that. Like, I play more things on Steam now than I do on Xbox.
Oh yeah, I actually rarely turn on my Xbox, to tell you the truth.
Steam's broken me of that habit. Like, they no longer, like, I don't care. I should have mentioned this when we were talking about GDC. So, Cliff Blazinski, he had a couple good sessions.
Yeah, I want to get to those, but the problem is they're generally packed like an hour before they even start.
Oh, yeah, and then you have to, like, almost sacrifice another.
And I've got so much going on that it's so difficult for me to sit there.
So he basically, the comment out of one of his sessions was that indies target the PC.
Yep.
Now, he basically broke it down. iOS is a maybe, but you still have to have Apple's approval. I think, like, if you can't get Apple's approval, then you're way an outliner, because it's not like Steam.
Right.
Which is easy, and it's definitely not an XBLA. So I'm like, target iOS, because, they have paid $4 billion to developers. There's too much piracy on Android. I think
the Android is a mess, and half the devices don't work the way they should.
Exactly. I think you're getting into a mess of
different resolutions, different screen size. I wouldn't bother with that. To tell you the truth.
The story. What website is that? The story that I'm reading off is off Develop. I don't know if that's when that question came in, or if it was OXM, official Xbox magazine, for the other story. And then he says, no one has a Windows Phone.
And I will agree with that. I work in Manhattan, and I've never seen one in the wild.
I've only seen one in the wild.
Yeah, it's like a rare Pokemon, You just don't see him.
Kickstarter's wonderful. Go Tim Schafer is kind of how he ripped that. So basically, his advice is to get to a PC. And we're going to up even more. I did finally get a reply from Kickstarter that their curated pages were invite only, and they've sent some PDF or something. I don't know if that's a go away little boy email, or if that's a that might have more information, because but
see some of the stuff that gets on there, though. Oh my god.
Yeah. Although I'm not waiting for them. I've already told Dylan to get our site into WordPress again out of the custom site, because we don't need all the features that it had.
Right, any little back-end stuff.
We can back down to, because Xbox Indies takes over the database and everything. So we can back GameMarx down to WordPress, and then I can easily just set up a curated page for Kickstarter. It's like, if you won't let me put it on the site, I'm going to do it anyway. And so hopefully...
And Kickstarter can succeed. You can see so many games do an outstanding job on there. But the problem is, or not the problem, I should say, the benefit is, if you're putting a game on Kickstarter and people aren't hopping onto it, there's a number of reasons. It could be, one, that maybe your idea isn't thought out well enough just yet. Two, maybe you're just not presenting it in the right way. You got to see some gameplay footage. You've got to have a solid idea. You've got to present it in a manner showing that you know what you're talking about. You have experience doing this, and you've got the right people in place. And then finally, that it's to scale. Is this something possible? Start something small. Maybe you see people go for, want $200,000 for my game. No, don't go for that. Go for maybe $5,000 or $10,000 at most. And then if you get more, you get more. If people like your idea, you're going to get money.
I have replaced my play every indie game with read every game Kickstarter. So that I'm seeing every new Kickstarter launch for the
see
segment
what's
at
right,
the show.
Wrong.
And if you're gonna fucking ask me for $300,000, you better have a damn video up.
Yeah, and you better have some awesome games that you've done before.
Yes, you better have. You really need to be somebody and have a background. And a lot of times it looks a lot like the Help Wanted forums on the XNA site. I mean, I get a chuckle out of it, and I'm like, you got a hard lesson coming.
The same thing in Unreal. Like, I want, got to do 3D models. I only need like 20 of them. Can't pay you, no royalties, the mod thing. Like, that's like months of work. No one's going to give that up.
Exactly. But yeah, and I think I'm going to have more thoughts on Kickstarter as we go on. I'm going to make that.
Yeah, it's not the end all be all, but
it's not. But I have a lot of thoughts coming out of it. I have some talent for screen scraping sites, and I got quite a lot of data on Kickstarter. That I'm probably not going to make public because I don't know how they'll react. And but I'm analyzing it and going over it and vetting theories. Like one thing, I have a theory. If your game's more than $10, you're not making it. All right.
Yeah.
Unless you're Tim Schafer, I better be able to buy your game for $10, and it better have an awesome $25 get the T-shirt and all that stuff pack.
Yeah.
Those levels seem key. So I'm running stats and checks and validating these things, and I'll have more articles as time comes out.
And I mean, just going off the recently successful ones right here, I'm looking at Deep Wars funded 542%, okay, of $18,000 pledged. So they went over 5 times they're hoping for, and they got $18,000. So it shows you start small, start reasonable. People are like, yeah, this can get done, and go out from there.
We'll come back to Kickstarter in a minute because that'll show with the list. I wanted to bookend these 2 articles here. These 2 news stories. One is off a Giant Bomb. Obsidian was hit with layoffs and a project canceled.
Oh God.
20 to 30 employees let go. Sad is like one guy started Monday.
Yeah, I know. I don't get that.
That sucked because it's like
poor management on someone's part, huh?
Yeah, and the second part is Obsidian was denied bonuses on Fallout New Vegas, which sold like gangbusters.
Yeah.
$300 million in sales revenue because it had an 84 on Metacritic and not an 85. An 85 would entitle them to bonuses. I am speculating that these 2 stories break back to back because they were like, we're trying to work with the publisher, which was Bethesda, of like, hey, come on guys, 84%, 85, we'll get something, and then we'll keep our funding going, and then that didn't happen, and then we had to make the hard cut. I think that's why it went back to back, but I'm speculating on that. The points here, though, is these are the reasons why I think this digital funding, the digital distribution, getting rid of publishers, crowdfunding, and making indie successful is so critical in that I read in the comments, too, on the original site that broke the Obsidian New Vegas story. Somebody went to Metacritic, and basically, like, all the scores were clustered up at the high end, and there's like 1 or 2 sites that gave it like 40%.
Right.
And there are sites that are notorious for giving low scores because they become outliers so that people click through their articles more on Metacritic.
Right.
So they're metagaming Metacritic. And it's like, I took stats in college, man. You throw out the outliers and you take the rest. You throw out the high, you throw out the low.
You do the bell curve. Exactly.
And you get a normalized set. And if you do that, they get this 85. But the point that I was starting to make here is that this is just a symptom of how bad our system is. Because Obsidian, yes, they agreed to the contract. They didn't have a choice, all right?
Right. They don't have any leverage to negotiate with.
Exactly. In the world, the publishers control all, and
they're the ones taking the risk.
It's sickening that if you want the publisher to publish your game, you will give up your IP rights. Very, very few game studios can get a publisher contract and keep their IP rights to the game. And that is fucked up to me. That is disgusting. That is like, hey, we publish our game and we publish the sequel, but you know what? We're not hot on it. The series is waned, so we're not going to do a 3rd game.
Right.
That developer can't say, well, okay, I'm going to go.
I'll take my ball and I'm going to run.
Yeah, right. And I'll see if there's a crowd. We'll Kickstarter. Which Kickstarter? And I got this queued up to talk about. But with the Wastelands and the Double Fine Adventure game, Kickstarter's proving that the publishers are not in touch with the community. If the community is willing to give millions of dollars to these guys for their games, there's a market out there for them.
Oh
and it's just another reason of like why this system has to be torn down. It has to collapse. The price fix $60 new game. Not every game on disc is worth $60.
Oh, not every. Jeez, a small fraction of them are worth that.
As much as people complain about the quality ratio on Xbox Live indie games, like I don't think
look at the
far off from AAA titles either.
You did a good ratio some time ago. You said, say there's 2,200 XBLA games. You said, and if only 5% of them are good, that's still a very large number of games that are good on that platform.
Yeah, because like you have I don't know what we're up to, like 2,800 now. I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
But yeah, it's probably nearing 3,000 games on there. So yeah, 5% would be 150 games. It's like, come on,
that's not bad.
That's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. It's disgusting all around that they would have to sign a contract like this, and the studio, they don't have assets. And the other thing that annoys me is there's not names on a box, even developer studios.
Right.
Game industry,
and they go away.
Art form that you don't credit the individual. It's like, I know Peter Jackson is not the only man behind Lord of the Rings, okay?
Right, but it's like his team, his people he's associated with, who's going to carry along to next project.
He's the ultimately accountable guy, right?
Yeah.
I want to see Gears of War by Cliffy B, I want to see it on the box. That's because if there's another game that comes out by Cliff, I'm like, you know what? I think his Gears of War stuff, the man knows how to put together a team and pull off a game.
That's right.
And
but look at the new SimCity coming out. People like Sid Meier, he's not involved. How's it going to be?
Exactly. Like there's Sid Meier's from an era where you could have your name on the box and you could become known. And, the publishers realized that puts the power in Sid Meier's hand.
Right.
Nobody cares if it's Maxis, EA, or whatever. It's Sid Meier, Or wait, I think I just confused him with the other guy.
Firaxis guy.
The other, I think his name starts with an S as well, and that's why I'm getting them mixed up. Civilization.
Yeah, I think we're messing up too.
Wait, Sid Meier's Civilization, Will Wright.
Will Wright, yes.
Yeah. But
Will Wright, that's right.
These names we know, right? Like they're like, hey, they made these great games, and if Will Wright was to do a Kickstarter, I'm funding the son of a bitch.
Oh yeah.
Will Wright, and I think it's something that indies can take back. Indies can, get out there with their name, and it's like, yeah, Jonathan Blow. I think we pattern ourselves sometimes a little too behind. Like, it's Team Meat. I don't really know who's behind Team Meat as well as I know Jonathan Blow. But,
right.
If the studio wants to do that, I think that's still an okay thing. But the studio should get to keep all its IP rights. Like, the fact that there's a Super Meat Girl or something? Are they doing that? No, I'm confusing that with Explosion. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it should not be at the behest of a publisher to bless that decision. It's like, yeah, we want to do a sequel. Or we don't want to do a sequel, and you can't give it to another studio.
You lose control right there.
And you know what? If at some point that the studio decides it wants to sell its IP, like Obsidian has worked on a lot of great titles. If they still had all those great titles, they could have said, like, all right, man, times are rough. We're just going to open up the IP vault, and we're going to auction off something, right? And let it go to some indie studio or another studio and all of that, and keep everybody together. Because really, the grand scheme of things, they only laid off 20 to 30 people. They did $300 million revenue in sales. It does not cost... It's fractions off of that sales to keep those 300 people employed for another couple of years till the next title ships. And I don't know. I just sorry.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Cliff Bleszinski before because I saw him give a speech at GDC last year, and that was one of the things he brought up was keeping your IP. He said it's essential for developers to do it, and don't give it up. No matter what they offer you, that's yours. That's your project. That's your baby. And a better deal may not come around. And maybe not right away, maybe not ever, but that's still your project, and you're the mastermind behind it, so you should have the control. It's all about maybe you negotiate a crappier deal, but in the end, you've got the rights to your game to do what you want with it. That's your ball. You can take it and you can go somewhere else.
The reason that there was no Wasteland 2 is he didn't have the rights.
That's right. And look at all that mess with Fallout, with Bethesda and who are the original developers behind Fallout?
Interplay. That's the reason there's Fallout.
Look at the reason they're going back and forth in court, and they just settled. It was a project because they didn't have the rights. One's making an MMO, the other one says no. Well, that was outside of our contract, and because they lost the rights.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that that was much further down, I guess, than Interplay. But Interplay, the guy who did Wasteland founded Interplay. Of course, lost the rights to Wasteland, so he couldn't make a sequel. He wanted to make a sequel, and he called it Fallout. And Fallout 1 and 2 were, actually his spiritual sequels, if not in story. And now he gets to go back and make a Wasteland 2, but it's just crazy.
Yeah.
I want to shout out to George Klingerman's post on
Yes,
Dream
please.
Build Play, and essentially the gist of this post and the forum thread with it is that this is very likely the last hurrah. This Dream Build Play is the last chance for the old guard, the old XNA crew, to get together. Let's make some games together and go out in style. I don't have a specific announcement at the time of this podcast, but in the next day or so, or maybe the next week, GameMarx is going to do a little something. I floated it by Dave. I floated it by George. Just kind of bounce off, make sure I'm not insane. Don't think Summer Uprising. That's not what we're about. It's going to be a little spot where we can just kind of get together and let's go out in style. You know, if this is the last Dream Build Play with XNA, or when the Xbox 720 comes out, there's no indie games, or we all move on to other platforms, and, you know, we're iOS devs now, and we're PC devs, and we're scattered. You know, let's get together this one last time and do some XNA games. And I thought I read something. Did you tweet something somewhere, Dave, about you were thinking of an XNA game now?
Oh yeah, so George got me inspired. I get distracted in my own little things, and he said, "Hey, look, let's." I do. I need a break every now and then too. So he said, "Yeah, let's get together and make some XNA games." And I dabbled in XNA, and now I finally said, "You know what? I'm going to take a break. This is me learning programming too." So I said, "I'm going to make a Pong game, and I'm going to submit it to XNA. But I'm going to use my cat and my dog as sprites and noises that I have recorded from them." So it's silly, but like that's my little game, my project in the end, and I'm learning a little bit as I go.
The chat just mentioned, I want to see Captain Dubstep finish. Yes,
Yes, I know. I'm waiting for that too.
We sat down. So, I mean, this is one thing that I always find funny. Somebody always tells me, I don't have any ideas for games. And I'm always like, bullshit. If you sit down and start to even clone a game,
He's got a million.
You will not be able to get, like, 2 weeks in that one game without having, like, a ton of other games distract you and ideas. Like, they just start coming. And there's a game idea that I still think is gold, and it's like, I forebode it to be talked about on the podcast. That's how good I think this idea is. And we were going down that route. That's actually why we were involved in Unity, because we were like, this needs to be on iOS. And then we sat down last night, Dylan and I, no one showed up to the game programming club that I run in Knoxville, and mostly my fault, because I don't send the reminder until like an hour before it meets.
I tried doing something similar in New York. I'll get into that later, but keep going.
And, so I was actually kind of relieved because it's like I wasn't really prepared that night. And Dylan and I just went to the whiteboard and we just listed everything we were working on, not just Funkworks, but like individually side projects, everything that is eating up our time, not counting the day jobs. And we had to go on the list, and it was like picking favorite children. I mean, it was really like, we can't do all of these. These all will not succeed. And we have to cut some of these items off the list. What are we going to cut? And we just went through the list and we made some hard decisions. And we figured out what has deadlines and what doesn't. And it's like, if Captain Dubstep's going to be done, it needs to be Dream Build Play because it's XNA based. That's what we're doing it in. And so we need to move it to the front of the line. Mm-hmm. And that's when we basically said, okay, the two things, and then this other idea for the Dream Build Play community site was on the board as well, and I hadn't even talked about that publicly because I'm like, we can kill this right now because I haven't told anybody about it, but I really want to do it. And we just kind of agreed, like, if we're going to push Dream Build Play, then we can push this other one. Plus, Dylan we could divide and conquer. Because I'm the holdup on Captain Dubstep. The stuff is in my court. And I'm like, I will get back on the video blogs. I'll get back on pushing it. It's there. So yes, we are doing that. You were talking about your group in New York. You couldn't get a meetup group in New York?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. So, like I said before, there's literally no game development scene in New York. I don't know if it has something to do with the cost of living over here or what. And we don't really have any developers, too. It's all iOS or mobile. You go to any of these meetups, and it's all, hey, I have an awesome idea for an iPhone game. Let me tell you, I'm an idea man. We've got to get some guys to make this. You could do it so fast, it'll make us so much money. Everyone is like that, Facebook or mobile. So anyway, I tried doing an Unreal Developers group a year ago, working out of my office, and I work like on the corner of Broadway and Wall Street. So I work, right there by the Bowl of Manhattan. So I figured, okay, prime real estate. I have a beautiful office we can use every day to do work in. This would be good. So we would get everybody from every walk of life coming down, except for game developers. I kid you not, we had people, one guy, clothing manufacturer, wanted to get his clothing within the game. What he did was he made clothing is kind of designed to look like
Dave?
Dave?
And hey, that's only one this show. It's actually
That's pretty good.
Pretty good for us. Are we still streaming? Is the stream still happening?
Can you hear me now?
Because it should attempt here in a second to auto reconnect to Dave.
I can hear you. Guys hear me?
Okay, yeah. Dave auto popped back in. I hope the stream's still going out. I don't know where the glitch hit. We were just saying when that happened, of like, that's only one this show. That's actually kind of low.
I figured it was me because my internet's always crapping out.
Let me double check in there. So you were saying his clothing line was set to look like?
Yeah, I wanted his clothing line to look like Kevlar that you could wear. So it looked like, Kevlar flak jacket t-shirts and stuff. He wanted to get his clothing into the game. Another guy wanted to sign an NDA to see his game idea. And I was like, no, you're coming to the wrong place, man. We're here to collaborate, work in a physical environment, and learn. We want to make games together. So slowly whittled it down from about 40 people to about 3 people who knew how to make games. And it just wasn't working out. So that basically crapped out into nothing. But yes, that's the New York metro area. Thinking on meetup.com, I'm going to get a ton of people together, and it was nothing.
Whoa,
so it's a tough market.
Blasted at me a lot of stuff at that once, I guess.
Well, it just restarted.
Okay, so I think we're all good and back. All right, into the Kickstarter. The Double Fine wrapped up this week. They coasted into like 3.4, I think, real close to that.
3.335 or something like that.
Wow.
3 1/3.
Well, you had to keep checking it back because I guess those payments were clearing or processing or something. Like Kickstarter didn't show the total pledges or something.
I mean, after like a couple days, I came back. It was like 3.
The funny thing is that the Tim Just Raised account that
that's pretty funny. You guys started, yeah.
It like the chart I made like a few days after they started, put it right at where it ended. Like I was saying 2.5 because I didn't think they'd keep that rate. But I guess they did through all of it. I mean, they obviously slowed down. It was a consistent rate, and maybe if I feel like it, I'll go back and plot a chart, but a lot of other things to do. And I'm not interested in, so, Wasteland 2 kicked off, and, at first I didn't think Wasteland 2 was funding at the same rate as the Double Fine, because Double Fine, within like 8 hours hit their funding mark.
Yeah.
But Double Fine asked for $400,000. And I realized Wasteland asked for 900, so they didn't hit their mark, but they hit the same amount. And the next day they were funded. Wasteland, let's give a refresh here. So we're up to the total. You can see I've already backed it. 1.2 is where they're sitting at now. So he's cleared that. I think in an update they said 1.5 full cross-platform, including Linux, so which it'll definitely get there. Wasteland 2 is, it's an excellent video. It's an excellent Kickstarter video to go watch. So, go watch how he did that. Now, I will say the common disclaimer. If you think you're funny, have an independent third party vet it.
Yes.
Because you're probably not. I watched them all. Most are not funny, and it just comes off horrible. And get like somebody who's going to be brutally honest and be like, man, it's not funny at all. And scrap it. And then just go with showing gameplay. And, just talking about what you're going to do with the money. That's usually the 2 big things that I look for. I look for a started project. Because, come on, man, if you can't start the game in your after hours with all the free tools that are just lying at your disposal, forget it. You don't deserve funding, right? You should have something.
That's right.
You should have something of the game up going and show me some prototype, some idea, prove it to me that you can execute. And the second thing I'm looking at is like, why do you need the money? Okay.
Right. Well, could you do this without the money? Is this going to make your life easier or what?
Right. I mean, one of the ones I think got up to today to mention out, they said the money goes towards us paying rent and eating. We're going to quit our day jobs and do this. And I'm like, awesome. You guys are committing to this. You're quitting the day jobs and, you're not asking for an insane amount. It's not like you're going to live on, like I'm doing the math and I'm like,
right.
No fucking way I could live on that. I wouldn't even get 6 months. What the hell?
A lot of people underestimate that as well.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder, like, what if they estimated, have they actually done a crunch on their costs? Other guys go in there and it's like, I need to pay an artist. I need to pay a sound guy. I want to hire an artist. I want to hire a sound guy. I want to buy a tool. I want to buy 3D Studio Max. I don't own 3D Studio Max. I want to buy 3D Studio Max.
Crazy expensive to begin with.
It is. And, totally valid reasons for your Kickstarter. If you're not Tim Schafer, if you're not, I'm spacing on, I'm looking up the guy's name. Spacing on the guy's name. Come on, GA Tech Grad. What's the Wasteland 2 developer's name?
Come on now.
I think he started it may not be GA Tech Grad. I may be confusing him with somebody else similar. It was just in our Knoxville Facebook, group. Brian Fargo. There we go. So, if you're not this guy, if you didn't found Interplay, if you're not Tim Schafer, then don't ask for in the millions. That's crazy. You're not going to hit that, and you don't need that. It's like, what are you going to do with that extra money? You're essentially on Kickstarter, you're pre-selling your game. Think of it as sales. You're just, hey, $10 a game, this is what I want to sell it for. And you're just getting people to buy early.
And you want to sell your game for less than you think you really would.
I want to give
so many guys going for crazy
shout out.
prices.
These guys are not new, but I'm going to plug this again. Go fucking fund Guncraft, guys. So, but get these guys there.
They're taking that voxel idea and going with it.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think it's. I know we've talked a lot about derivative, Minecraft clones, but the idea of like a first-person shooter Minecraft, the run and gun of Call of Duty or Team Fortress, and then being able to like make a shelter like right in the middle of gunplay.
Right.
I love that idea. I do confess, you see the little thing on there. I'm a backer. Look at the little green. You're a backer. If this doesn't get funded, it will be the only project I have ever backed that didn't get funded.
And you want to keep that record, man.
Exactly. Do not fuck this up for me.
Yeah.
All right.
I know I funded it as well, so we're in the same boat.
I do think on that, when I was talking about price of the game, $15. I wish you would have made it 10. I wish, like doing the stats and all that. I wish you guys would have made the game $10.
Or for Guncraft, you're saying?
Yeah, Guncraft. Like that $5 is a huge,
Stepping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
for an indie. For an indie.
Yeah, because you're not only competing for people's time now, but you're competing for their money. You're competing for their time as well, and you're competing against every game out there, regardless of what you think. You're a AAA or your Xbox indie. You're competing for people's time. They only have so much, and you got to put that into consideration. They
have to feel for you. Yes, they're on the site because they feel for people, but they have to feel for you individually.
Right. Like, well, what's my desire to give my time and my money towards your project? Maybe people want to live vicariously through these developers, so they're throwing their money that way. Share your story.
So
give people a reason to give money
this
to.
week, other than Wasteland 2, there wasn't a lot to highlight this week that I found worth highlighting, because I do vet them. I do like these. If I'm not backing everything I'm recommending. Because some of them are like, well, I'm not personally going to play this or not, but I possibly could back, So the first one up this week, well, actually the second one, Wasteland 2 is the first one, but they don't need my help. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Agency. This thing was a...
I got all excited for a minute because I remember my days playing that on the Sega CD.
Yeah, well, I think that might be the game. Because the guy's he's talking about and showing... he's quite humorous in that, and he made these old school...
Wow, that's the same. It looks just like the background of the Sega CD game.
Okay, so he's taken the raw footage. That was like a
oh no, but his. Wow, yeah, it does. That is the Sega CD game.
And that's a montage. He has all the original footage. So he's
wow, it looks great now too.
Reproducing, getting it for tablets essentially. So
I'm glad you brought this to my attention because I freaking loved that game.
I checked into this, and there's like a little love community behind it of like hardcore guys. Really mentioned like it's not a popular one like a Wasteland or a Fallout, but there is definitely a niche that appeals to this game, and I thought like, hey, that sounds pretty interesting. I may come back in and read a little bit more on this and end up backing on that. The pause that I have on this game, I think he's targeting mobile.
Yep.
And no. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm wrong on that. So he each featuring more than 30 minutes of video available DRM free download Mac or PC at $9 backing level.
Mm-hmm.
And 9 complete mysteries at the level, and I guess you get more as the tiers go up. I don't know how many were in the total collection.
Yeah, let me see this. Some of these are definitely new. Mummy's Curse is original. Tin Soldier is original. Maybe Mystified Murderess, but it looks like there's some new ones, unless there's something I'm missing.
Yeah, and in the video he talks about that, of going through, shooting new ones, producing new ones. Technology has changed a lot, and they can do a lot, but...
that game's 20 years old at this point as well.
It definitely looks like a nice, interesting Kickstarter there. And then the
wow.
other one that I have is Metacell. Now, I don't know where I feel on this one. Because they do this Tim and Eric thing for their video.
And I hate Tim and Eric.
Yeah, I'm not a big Tim and Eric fan. But they do actually do the style well. But I kind of get a vibe off of it that is, are you guys creative? Could you come up with your own thing? Like, you obviously have the talent to pull this off, I guess, because you did that. So I don't know what my opinion would be on, like, do a Tim and Eric riff for your Kickstarter video. If that's going to help or hurt. That's kind of a hard thing. Depends on what somebody comes in. If somebody comes in and goes, oh, that's hilarious, I did this Tim and Eric parody. It helps. If they come in like me and I'm like...
No, what is Tim and Eric exactly? I've heard of it, but I'm not really familiar with it.
It's a horrible thing that comes on Adult Swim late at night, and they just do that weird, bizarro... Like, I don't know if you watch any of those weird Adult Swim stuff. Like, not the good Robot Chicken stuff.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, like, the dregs.
Like, more whacked out than Aqua Teen?
Aqua Teen's in the good category.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So this stuff is really odd, then.
Yeah. It's the Xbox Live indies of late night television. And
oh my god.
And, Robot Chicken, those are the James Silvas, And,
I like that analogy.
Yeah, and this is well produced, so it has production value. It's just weird. It's a GHKY7 or stuff. It's like, I can see you can write a game. I don't know why you would write this game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they've got a humor, they got an appeal, Tim and Eric have a following. So they do that, and, it's blah. Anyway, on to the game itself. So they did this, it's a sequel to their Metacell game, which was this, shooter, match 3 type game, where you're just kind of spinning in a circle, doing like a match, and there's a little bit of trick of things fire at you and stuff like that. So initially I was kind of like, it's just a quick little mobile game. Why do you need $60,000 for that?
Yeah.
The thing is that when they get into their Kickstarter and they talk, and they go through it, of how that's not what 2 is. 2 has this storyline, it has this plot, it has a shoot 'em up, mixed into it. Like we're taking this little idea here, and we want to really expand upon it. So it's like, all right, you guys got some grand ambition, and they also have this little green dragon dude. If I can get him back up there.
This video is all over the place.
It is. The little green dragon dude has Asperger's and is the chef. I was like, all right, yeah, okay. So, and I think that just came up like a day or two ago. That's not been up that long. The other thing I would advise for Kickstarter is line up some friends who are going to donate to your Kickstarter. Like, oh yeah, mom and dad are going to kick in $50, and my brother will kick in 50. Like some decent level donors.
Right.
And call them the instant you're public. Nothing is sadder than seeing that the Kickstarter's been up for 2 days and it's at 0.
Mm-hmm.
Like, mom wouldn't chip in for your Kickstarter.
Yeah, really.
Like you
like,
didn't
come on, tell
chip
me
in
somebody's
for your
gonna throw something in
Kickstarter. Like pump it up so at least it's a couple $100, man. I mean, that's just that looks really depressing because there is a psychology of not wanting to back a loser.
Right. You're like, am I just, and it's your money and you're absolutely right. There's definitely psychology behind this.
I read somebody that was saying, like, the reason a lot of people in the U.S. will vehemently defend a perceived capitalism system and systems that benefit, like the 1% and things like that, and scoff at programs that could help them, okay, is somewhat there's that fear of you don't want to be the last guy, right? And the fear is like, you might not qualify for that program, and then these other people get elevated above you, and you're technically the last guy in line now.
Yeah.
And when you see that 0 on a Kickstarter project, that kind of kicks in of like, I don't want to be the guy that backed this, and then you go and the project folds, and there's like 3 backers. You're
like, wow, maybe am I the only one who had this terrible idea?
Yeah. So, I think my chat died a while ago.
I wrote something, but I still got no response.
The last thing I have is your blur. Or, it's like we've gone on really late and they've passed
past
out.
midnight.
Yeah. I mean,
people get tired.
We do encourage drinking, so that's the downside to that. So, I want to thank you, Dave, for coming on the show. It's been a really great, excellent episode.
Thank you.
I get little emails since we've switched to being a developer.
I love it. I love the perspective you guys take now.
I get little emails of like, man, that was just awesome. I love the episode where you guys talked about source control. And I was telling Dylan, like, shit, man, we could have been talking about that stuff any of these episodes.
As I've spent an entire day trying to get my source control to work.
Yeah. So, thanks for coming on. I think it's going to be another good episode. The marketing stuff in there, the Unreal experiences. I think that's going to be helpful. And this will be a really good episode to point out and thank what you do because I was kind of joking, but I'm a little serious. You are this renaissance man of the indie world. You got hand in a little bit of everything. And
I try to do a little bit of everything.
That makes you a great, resource and somebody to ask questions and have as a guest.
Yeah, it's not very good at anything, but kind of can do a little bit of anything.
Well, you also get perspective. I mean, that's so valuable.
Right.
I mean, you got a leg up, man. You already know how to market your game once you get it built.
And now it's the problem is finishing something, right?
Yeah. So, we'll encourage you. We'll set up a site and we'll get that going and we'll ship something. So thank you everyone for tuning into the live stream. We may have a podcast next week. I said earlier we weren't because we had a fundraiser and the fundraising fell through. So we'll probably have a podcast and we'll catch up with Dylan who's at a conference this week. I think it's another anime conference. There might not be that much game stuff, but you know what? We'll talk anime for a bit. Why not? So, All right. Thank you, everyone, for downloading the podcast. Thank you for streaming, and we'll probably be back in a week.